the Conservation Commission meeting for February 5th at 7:35. I guess the first order of business is to approve the minutes. Does anybody get any omissions or corrections for the minutes?
Yes.
Yep. You wanna go in, I have primarily typos on mine.
Okay, I have a couple of things. The first, I think the date on the top is wrong. Is that right? It should be February 5th.
Yep. Date in the bottom, right?
Okay. Yeah, date in the bottom is right.
This kind of thing, you never look at it again.
I know, exactly. That's the biggest thing that always gets overlooked.
Amy, on the last page, it says that I closed it, but I had already left.
Yes, that was.
Somebody else had done that.
Okay, and on the second bullet of the first page, the last sentence, I wasn't sure if there was something left out. It said, and that information be provided
And that
to the commission?
Ask for the overlay, and that information be provided.
To the commission,
Yeah. The information of the overlay.
okay. And let's see here.
On the-
And then on the second page, Cooper Farm Estates discussions, construction update. Just a couple typos, and then on the fifth sentence, it says, "Good evening." It says, "Miss Seward reminded them that the flock logs may both be very efficient below 40 degrees.
May-
May
It
not,
should be
yeah, may
may
not
not
be.
be.
That's very
May
important.
not
Yep.
be efficient." Okay, and then,
About,
and also the bottom of that page, the same page, it says, there was discussion of how stormwater lot 5 may have changed, blah, 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 stay under the field development ownership, be transferred to the homeowners association, or, I thought it should say, be merged with adjacent lots, not split between, right?
Yeah.
Merged with adjacent lots. And just one thing, and I don't know, I thought that on the page 3, the same site, it says that Keith Bergman, the town administrator, thought that the no build on lots 12 and 13 made sense, but I didn't. Did he ever actually say that, or did he
no,
say that?
he did say that. He said
tried to be
he
very
said
careful.
he said he preferred my motion.
Right, and he said that things were moving forward until the proposal
we had a
emerged.
compromise.
Yeah, and but he didn't state,
Okay. I'll double check what he
definitively.
actually said.
Okay.
At the bottom paragraph, there was discussion on other site, then it says, it was noted,
Yeah.
noted. And then you keep reading down the various, then it says, once the grasses are established, mowing should be limited to after bird nesting season. I'd like to put in the word annual, so that the annual mowing, so like the one-time mowing would happen after the birding season. The next page, discussion review of Littleton Conservation Trust projects. Fourth line down to the right, commissioners were interested, comma, but it's supposed to be felt, not flet. And then I just had one back on page 2. In the Cooper Farm, about 10 down, sentences down. Let's see, they said they would also plug basin 4, no water. And then the sentence under there, Ms. Green said that they will also, should be, it
Need
said,
to.
need to, right. That was the last one.
However, nay and dot are 2 words that would not pull up.
Exactly. Yep. I get it with the spell checker. So I move that we accept the minutes as amended.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
There's some typos.
Can I add a couple things to the agenda?
Yeah.
for discussion. One is that we need to ratify, I'd like to do that first, is to ratify the 3 cease and desist for Cooper. And then another, as part of a discussion, Amy's hours and a letter to be submitted to the selectmen. So,
For compensation.
right, yep, those are 2.
Okay, do you,
I would like to add one more thing. Under the 750 Hartwell Avenue conservation restriction, there should be a 4th person coming in for 51 Hartwell, the florist.
So adding 51?
Yeah,
Good.
I just hadn't heard from them, but I just got something.
Okay.
The what, the floor?
The last name is Flores, Flores.
okay, somebody want to make a motion to ratify
Yeah.
the,
So I'd like to make a motion that we formally ratify the 3 cease and desists for Cooper Farm, but I'd like to add on one of them, specifically the DEP number, so that 833, which is for the road, that we asked for additional information. I asked for discovery to have a formal impact of the wetlands and the waterways be added to that cease and desist. So I asked that we ratify all 3, but make an additional comment on 833.
And do all pictures need to be in at a certain time for that cease and desist, or, because I've sent a few, but I didn't send all the pictures that I had?
No, because it's open.
Okay.
You can send them anytime.
All right.
somebody want to second that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Go to Amy's hours, get
Yeah,
being compensated for the extra hours she seems to have to put in it periodically.
Yeah, and speaking with some of the selectmen, they encourage that we just send a letter stating our thoughts, and I feel as though with some of these larger developments that are in kind of distress, that there's a lot of hours that are spent kind of chasing siltation around, and to just let the selectmen know that her hours are increased because of increased development. So I would formally ask that we submit a letter, and I'm happy to help draft it, to send to the selectmen asking for some type of remuneration for that, and also, charge back to the developer or whatever, but it shouldn't be
I think
coming,
that's a great idea. And it also
shouldn't be coming out of ours.
It
because-
also sends the messages about the
Right.
developers.
Right. Well, I mean, and we don't have time to do our own housekeeping for open space and things like that.
Well,
so-
that's what I'm kind of saying, is that a lot of this reason why she's even having to do these extra hours is because
Right.
of the developers not doing their due diligence and,
Site control.
total site control. That's what's pushing us, so I would put that in there too.
Right.
I think that's important, the message to send.
And
Doing
because
too much
a
too
lot of
fast.
Green is not doing monitoring anymore for
Right.
the town.
Right.
Actually, they are very specific to the roadway, so.
Okay. So we need a
Yeah.
second on that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So you're gonna write something?
Yeah.
The bylaw regulation review. See, we don't have anything until 7:50, so we've still got a few minutes.
That was the plan.
That's laid out plans.
Best laid plans.
We
Does
can also
anybody-
do the jerky culvert as well. That's,
Which one do you want to handle first?
right.
Does anybody need copies of this?
I didn't bring my book.
So, the printer's not working, so I'm pretty sure these are the
Thank you.
up-to-date ones.
So,
So-
all right, what do we need to look at first?
It starts on page 2.
Oh, the track changes.
Yeah, I printed the whole thing, so most of it's not there. but it's-
I cannot read that.
So at the top of page 2, what is it, section 1.33, that just spells out again that anything that is exempt from the state wetlands would also be exempt under this.
Right.
Right.
So that would include things like a shed that's outside of 50 feet and in lawn and has erosion control.
Right.
Would be exempt, so that just spelled that out.
Oh, good, and you put ABC next to the,
I did, Anna.
that's good. It cannot be referred to specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So the stuff in blue under 1.4, look at this because I haven't looked at these in a while. The target of this language was to allow something such as what DCU did, that if they're in the 50-foot and do a serious high bar improvement of conditions, that the commission can consider that as public interest, which would be 1.4A, because public interest was never defined.
Yeah, so basically.
In the
it
past, you had
prevents
used public
examples.
interest as a reason for a waiver to allow a septic system replacement. That's a pretty obvious one, but.
There's a G missing, including exceeding mass DEP standards. And then,
So-
changing management systems to conditions sort of broadens
Yeah.
the application of the word stormwater.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
because the site may not have existing stormwater conditions, and a rough example of that we've been using is partly, there actually isn't any stormwater controls out there, at least I don't think there are. But it was something where you might want them to work in the 50-foot no-build zone,
Right.
if it's a significant net improvement. So does that language seem all right?
Now, what about that et cetera at the bottom? Such a number may be achieved by measures such as, so you list these, but then you say et cetera. That leaves it open to anything, really, right?
Well, it doesn't limit it. I mean, for instance, a particular site may have an endangered species on it, and they can come in and do some serious habitat improvements. So
Maybe
we
just
can't
say
spell
or
out
similar.
everything.
Maybe just say or
similar,
similar.
yeah.
Instead of et cetera. Et cetera leaves it
Yeah,
open.
et cetera
to
leaves
like-
it
Right.
really wide open.
Yeah.
Maybe like, or similar
Significant
environmental
improvements.
or
Significant net improvement is
habitat
what
Yeah,
we would-
yeah.
I like significant improvements.
But it needs to be like environmental from a habitat or stormwater or species standpoint, not necessarily an economic improvement.
Right, because I
Argue
would say
it
that
was
that
a-
also gets away from, because
Yeah.
DCU is pushing the
I mean,
economic.
and, yeah, I mean, that's great, but that's not our,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not what this is for.
So similar environmental improvement?
I would just use, if you agree, I'll just use similar significant net improvement. Oh, okay, environmental.
Yeah, it doesn't, even the first part of it,
Even the
yeah, it
first
doesn't
part should
say, yeah,
environmental.
environmental. Yeah, then you could just say similar net improvement. Such net environmental improvement may be achieved, blah, 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 and then something, or similar net improvement, that implying environmental?
Well, yeah, although the rest of that does say, so as to promote the interests protected by the bylaw at the end of that sentence. So environmental is kind of, because in one sense, you don't really care
Or
about
areas
upland
subject to
environmental
protection.
stuff.
Right,
You
right,
care
right,
about your
right,
areas
right.
of-
Although it says or, permanent protection of buffer zone, or areas subject to protection.
And then on the kind of grayer area, and we're not totally convinced where in the regulations this should go. That language has to do whether or not limited projects that are in the Wetlands Protection Act would also be allowed, the most common one being driveways. And I did go through all the limited projects, and I think I sent this to you a while ago, to see if all the limited projects under the Wetlands Protection Act would kind of be covered anyway. The only ones that Some of the agricultural ones, I assume, would be under the agricultural exemption. So that would be exempt. A new roadway, no, that would work under, okay. The one that I didn't think wouldn't be covered is wildlife impoundments, farm ponds, and fire protection ponds. That might be an example of limited project that the state would allow, but I don't think would fit under any of these categories in there.
I thought we wanted them to have a waiver.
Well, it's either,
So we
well,
would
well,
want-
that's where it's decided where to put this.
Yeah.
Either you put this so it's part of the
Yeah.
waiver, or you put it so you don't even come in for a waiver. You
Right.
still need to come in and do the full application.
But they wouldn't have to do the least environmentally damaging practical alternative, right? Wasn't that one of the things that we wanted them to be swept into?
Yeah, and Rebecca said that would be what you could add in your normal discussions, outside of whether it's a waiver or not. But if you just want to make sure that they're doing anything, say you have to ask for the waiver, and this could be a reason that you ask for the waiver. And then you
Yeah.
pull all the other strings in.
Yeah, I would think
These
so,
are the
because the
standards.
waiver isn't, I mean, if for simple projects that are under here, it doesn't have to be that strenuous.
Yeah, the only thing, so, that wouldn't be covered is, new improvement of access for a renewable energy project. Wouldn't get covered. And, there's another one. Yeah, I guess there's two.
Renewable energy would not get covered by a waiver?
A new or improvement of access for
Oh.
a renewable energy project.
New access.
So they wouldn't be eligible for a waiver. Unless you put in this thing that's saying that you could.
Wait, what about renewable energy?
What if somebody wants to put a solar farm in an upland, but you have to cross
Yeah,
the
we have
wetlands
to
to get there? I
cross.
wouldn't give them the waiver.
No.
Yeah, so that's,
I wouldn't put that in.
well then, in which case, if you don't think that these should be limited projects, then we're gonna have to take them, there's like A through T of these, and decide which ones apply and which ones don't. Which would be tough. So I think, for instance, response to oil and hazardous waste, I'm assuming that could be allowed in the public interest, if you're so inclined. Just because it's coming in as a limited project doesn't mean you have to approve it.
Right.
It just says you can.
Mhm.
If they want to come in and fill 10,000 square feet for renewable energy, you can say yes, you can say no.
Hmm.
Right.
But just because it's over 5,000 square feet doesn't mean end game, because it's a limited project. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So it would just still be case by case, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, but it would give you, if someone needs to maintain well, that's water dependent. See, a lot of these would fit under here anyway.
Okay.
But it's just cleaner if it's clear, especially to the applicant, whether or not all those limited projects that are listed in the Wetlands Protection Act would fit in here or not. So this says you'd still need to apply a waiver. This is a reason you could be granted the waiver. Doesn't have to, it's not automatic.
Okay.
So definitely leave it up in this section, it sounds like.
Yeah.
What crosses my mind is, you got mosquito control, they used to come around, they used to clean ditches and stuff.
Mosquitoes, they're exempt.
Yeah, just like the trains.
So this earlier language would just, it's
Right.
clear that they're still exempt. I get a notification from them every now and then. It's just like sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, it's kind of funny. but- All
Okay.
right, so how much time do you want to spend on this?
We have 1
Looks like
minute
we're all-
until 7:50.
So the next is section 4,
So far, it's fine.
It is fast.
Yes, the next up, is on page 11.
7:50.
page 11.
Yeah, it's like 4 minutes fast.
And this is where we are trying to tackle pre-existing, especially consideration of single-family homes who want to do an expansion. But we'd also have to be careful how the language would work for retail, commercial, anything else.
Totally.
So the one in section 4.21 is just reiterating that the minor activities that were listed as exempt are also, it's just basically reiterating those, such as the shed one, which is the one I see most often.
Okay.
It's also things like roadway signs, utilities in roadways, stuff like that, you know, they have a pretty long list.
Now, why does it cross out new activities in the title here, but then it continues to say new activities in every paragraph?
That should probably be taken out. Well, let's see. Yeah, because I think that, and we have to check the order of these, is that the whole section is wetland setbacks. And then you might get an out, if you will, for the minor activities. You might get an out for a new activity of a certain size. But then otherwise, you don't get an out.
Because new activity was added in the second one. No new activity or structure shall be allowed. This is the minimum distance. So
just so you know, that clock is 5 minutes fast.
I guess so it seems to emphasize new activities in every instance. Where does it say? Let's see. Oh, you're saying that the added section, minor activities in the buffer zone that require no filing, could be existing activities rather than new? Filing. Shall require no filing. I don't know. I guess I would
I don't know if you
question.
really need the word new at the top.
Maybe, is this the comment by town council, this cross out of new and then just have?
That was something that came up after we met with her.
Oh.
So I'm not gonna remember
Yeah, I don't remember
the
that.
discussion.
Anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. It says new in these paragraphs and not in the title. It probably doesn't make any difference, but I just question it.
Yeah, I'll put it back in the title. No big deal.
Just maybe circle it and ask her, is
Yeah.
there some reason why to expand it beyond new? Because,
We've got to kind of bring this to a close.
yeah, why don't we finish the rest later? It'll make us late.
Okay.
So if we ever make it through this, I want to attack the filing fees too, so.
Oh, yeah.
Don't think this is the last bit of administrative stuff you're going to do.
I still see under administrative discussion, what about Dirty Farm Pond culvert installation sequence?
The printer doesn't work, so I couldn't print it out, but I think I sent that around.
Yeah, we sent it around, so it's
Yeah.
a note from Hancock Associated dated February 2nd with 8 points of reference for the construction sequence pertaining to the Fraser Street culvert. So in review of this and discussion with Amy, I think that the 8 are fine. The only one that I'd like to add is that we continue to monitor the levels of the pond, even when the culvert is placed in, for a minimum of 2 to 3 years. And we also have in other parts of that filing vegetation, monitoring of vegetation within that pond to bring some of that wetlands vegetation back
Should we
as well.
say 3 years?
Yeah.
Just do it, yeah.
Fine. Yep.
Could I see?
Yep, sorry.
Because there was one thing that I saw when I was looking at it briefly. It looked like something is missing on number 4, bullet 4. It says, if standing water is present at the location of the culvert inlet at an elevation greater than, and then it doesn't say.
Oh, yeah, I mentioned to him that there's something missing there.
262.
Oh, okay. So it's like greater
Exactly.
than-
It's
greater
been in
than
what?
262, which has
262.
been ingrained.
Okay.
Which number was that?
That's number 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it would be 262, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, that's-
262.5.
Actually, my
It is
comment
point
back to him
something.
was that before they put in the culvert, they'd want to pull that water down pretty far,
Yeah.
so they're not having it in order.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he may have responded to me on that, and I
That was
just
so,
forgot.
Okay.
okay.
Like, moving along to the 7:50 meeting, the Howell Ave Conservation Restriction Restoration.
So you've got 4, number 51, 53, 85B, and 65.
Did you have anybody in tonight, or?
We do,
Got a
we
couple.
have Ms. McMahon, yes, from 53 Hartwell, so we can start with that. So again, these were the potential for different encroachments into the conservation restriction that were noticed after Glenn Berger
Right.
and Black Maple put in post for where all the.
So how many do we have coming in tonight?
2, I believe, yeah, 2.
What address are you
The
guys?
Alsops,
51?
yeah. 85B Hartwell, the Alsop said the husband ended up having a meeting and she couldn't get a sitter. So I
Oh.
said, come in on the 5th. And Mr. Peterino, 65 Hartwell's on vacation, so he couldn't make it in.
Okay, so 81 and 83.
Yeah.
So-
Wait, 81 or 51?
No, 51. Yeah, 51. Who do you want to start with?
Start with 53?
Come on up.
Sure. Did you get that document?
That one I was able to print, because I had time, I think. I got too much stuff to make. Here's copies of this stuff.
Okay.
It's actually PowerPoint there.
Yeah.
So when you think-
Peterino just walked in.
Mm-mm.
No,
No.
Jensen.
Yeah. If you want to just walk us through, so, and I'm sure that by now you know that the history of the conservation restriction. And
Yeah.
so, while we appreciate going through this exercise, we will have to talk about the legality of it. And it's not a decision that ultimately, I think, that our commission can make because of the legal ramifications of the CR. But if you want to just kind of walk us through, that
Yeah,
would,
sure.
that would be great.
Yeah, so basically I put together, and there are 2 reasons why I think we should reconsider it. The first one is basically, we talked briefly before about whether I knew there was a conservation restriction there.
Mhm.
And yes, that's mentioned in the deed, but there's nowhere in the deed or anywhere, it took me a long time to find where it actually is.
Mhm.
There's 3 different lot maps in my deed, and none of them have the conservation restriction on it. The conservation restriction itself doesn't have a map. And then the only way I was able to find it at all, there's a handwritten note on the side of the
Mhm.
conservation restriction. So from that, I figured out which map it was.
Okay.
So a bit of a treasure hunt to actually figure out where the boundaries are for the. And it
Yep.
turns out that I missed the edge of the boundary by about a yard,
Okay.
where I put my shed. Then the other thing I put in there is that basically when the conservation restriction was put in, there was a requirement to stake it out, which was
Mhm.
presumably to make it clear where it is.
Mhm.
And that wasn't done until 12 years after the conservation restriction was put in. It was supposed to be done within 3. So I just basically, I just think that it hasn't been clearly communicated to me where it is. And
Okay.
I only knew that I put my shed in the wrong place after the fact.
Right, yeah.
And the statement in there. The other argument that I'm making is basically, I bought the shed now, so I'm putting the shed somewhere.
Sure.
If you look at our lot map, the only area that's outside of the restriction, not in my lawn,
Mhm.
is wooded.
Okay.
And I'm going to have to take down about maybe 5 to 6 trees just to get it there.
Right.
The area where I have put it, I provided a picture of what it looked like
Mhm.
before,
Yeah.
and it's just like a little few bushes thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it took us 15 minutes to clear that.
Right.
So I just think that moving the shed is going to be worse.
Just have
Seems
thoughts,
like
or
it's-
Carl, you have thoughts on that? As I stated, the challenge is, some of this is not jurisdictional by us now, because it does involve the development, and a change to the CR would involve a tremendous amount of work with town council and various other entities as well. Natural Heritage, for one. So they would be the ones, and the only ones, that would, I believe, be able to accept any amendment to it. Well, I think I certainly agree that it's in the most desirable place. I don't think that it's any longer within our jurisdiction, because it is on the CR.
So your next course would be to go to deal with natural heritage, I guess.
What are your?
It would be an exceedingly difficult change in the conservation restriction. If you change it, it's gonna undo the natural heritage permit, the conservation management permit. The Board of Selectmen signed off on this, the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs signed off on it, and Natural Heritage based their permit on it. So it's extremely unusual for a conservation restriction to get changed.
Are they able to make,
Amendments?
I don't know if an amendment is,
Well, I mean,
accommodations, are they able to make, and I don't know if that's, I mean, certainly not in my purview of knowledge, if they are allowed to make certain allocations for that?
Especially.
Given your,
environmental
given your,
alternatives.
the history of that as well.
Yeah.
The trees to be taken down are in the conservation restriction area?
Nope.
No, they're outside.
Right, so the shed, I mean, I don't know if you've got, if you can see on the lot map here, sorry, that dot, you can't see it because it's printed
No.
from white. Sorry.
Yeah,
Where are we?
Do you want to look inside?
That dot is where the shed is. That is where I would want to put it. So that's outside of the conservation. So basically, if I did an imaginary line here, that's where our lawn is, and this is all wooded.
Yeah.
We've got a swing set there, I can't put it there. So,
So this is the edge of your lawn right here?
And, well,
yes,
I
that's where it
also
is.
want to add a couple points. The lawn was expanded after the original construction, so the lawn
Right.
was already expanded into the conservation restriction before the shed happened. I don't think it was a lot, but you can see on some of the aerial photographs. And we did have you came in, was it last year, whenever it was, for discussions about the sheds, and
Mhm.
that's, I went out to see if I could figure out where the wetland line was, whether or not this is a buffer zone, which I think it might be also. And that's where we had the discussion. I said, well, if you're 50 feet away from a wetland and in the lawn, then you're okay. But if you wanted to go in the woods as you wanted, you'd have to determine where the wetlands were and go from there. So I'm not sure if the shed is also in the buffer zone,
Well,
or just kind of a separate.
I don't know how to take the wetlands information was, but we looked at a website that had the wetland stuff on it.
Yeah.
But my house is closer to the wetlands than that spot, so.
How would we encourage him to proceed, to give him the contact? So I think the overarching authority is really natural heritage, and if they're willing to accept the location, then I would feel comfortable accepting their statement, as long as town council accepted it as well.
Yeah, especially given the situation, the history of, and
Right.
not having any markers,
Mhm.
The markers were tied to construction.
Yep.
So whenever the house got constructed is when the marker should have gone in.
Okay, and that was 2003? Looks like it
The house
was
was constructed in 2008.
2008, okay, still,
The CR was 2005.
yep,
Right.
okay.
I don't know, I think though the selectmen would probably would probably want our feedback as to whether or not we thought that.
Oh, for sure, town council,
Yeah.
for sure.
So we'd have to decide
Yep.
how we feel as well. But
I think
I mean, we don't
first-
have jurisdiction. I'm sorry, Jim.
I think a phone
Sorry,
call to
Jim.
Natural Heritage.
Yeah,
For him.
Yeah, phone call to Natural Heritage would be a good start.
Okay, so
Yep.
what do I have to ask them?
I would explain exactly what you explained to
Okay,
us.
right,
If you can actually talk to the right person,
right,
but it's a good start.
okay.
I
They
think
are-
it's more than a
Amy,
phone
is
call. I
that
think
Missy?
it's
Well,
go
they're-
right down there.
They're in Westboro.
It's Missy, right?
That's-
Misty Ann.
Misty, yeah. There.
I can send you her
Yeah.
contact information.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always good to
Do
go
you have
face to
me-
face, but I wouldn't just drop in. I'd
Measurements.
Make an appointment.
make an
Right.
appointment, because you might be wasting your time.
But I wonder if the developer would be willing to help out with this, the movement of the shed, or would have to happen to do that, since it was partly their responsibility to put the markers in.
It was not their responsibility to mark her in.
It's
the
the builder, it's
responsibility
the
of the
builder.
builder to put the marking. So it was owned and permitted by Black Maple, the Conservation Management Plan and CR said the stakes boundaries had to be put in when construction started. So that was after Black Maples is when theoretically should have put in.
Is that what it says?
Black Maples will work with you to get them in anyway, just to make it all.
That's the only
And do
Satori
these
next
deeds
to
need
the-
to be updated?
On the CMP, and maybe I've got this the wrong end of the stick, it says that all the work listed below has to be done within 3 years of the date of this.
That's what I have too.
And the date of this is August 5th, 2005,
Of when,
of this document, of the CMT,
Yeah.
the issuance of this document. It says the work as described below shall be completed within 3 years from the date of the issuance.
Which condition's that?
General condition number 1 on the second page. And at that stage, it was the original grantor.
So I think that's the kind of information that you have to bring forward.
Okay.
right,
To,
to bring to her, Ms.
Yeah.
Mayor, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you should be.
Because I
that's
think
what
you have a
should
good
be-
case there.
That's what you should be saying.
The letter that was sent to us mentioned.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Sorry, this is my neighbor's
Lilia
divorce.
Flores and Victor Cartwright.
Sorry. I can
Go ahead,
hear
sorry.
The letter that was dated January 19 that was sent to us makes mention of the special condition number 11,
Mhm.
but it does not make notage of the general condition number 1, which I think it's the most important part of it.
And we would probably agree with you, but we just want to reiterate that this is not our jurisdiction. So, because it falls under natural heritage. So there's 2 separate governing bodies here, so.
There's 4.
Well, 4. Okay, yes,
Is that-
there are 4.
And is that different to the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife? Because that's the people that are...
The heritage is a part of fisheries and wildlife.
Okay.
The division.
Okay.
Maybe a group ought to go down there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
a better to say, we 4 people feel as though, you know,
Yeah.
an error was made. I think that's probably the way.
Yeah.
And I guess other part of your argument is what you explained to us, is that there'd be more damage
Right.
at this point. So you're kind of looking for an after-the-fact permit.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is gonna be really difficult. I think if this was just a buffer zone issue, it'd be a lot different than if you're changing a conservation restriction, which is a.
Well, they may have who knows, they may have some way to do it.
There could be precedents.
It's
as
gonna be
well.
what's written in the conservation restriction,
Yeah.
rendition amendment, so.
Okay. We appreciate you coming in. It's unfortunate, for sure.
But I would urge you to follow through on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, and to make sure that we're being diligent as well, if you can keep Amy apprised of your communication of when you made contact. That way, we've done our part by letting you guys know
Okay.
as well. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So, do you want to have them come up?
Yeah. But if they could, we're all in agreement, whatever they're gonna do, was the party that has 51, do you want to come up and speak, or do you just kind of got the information already, what's gonna have to transpire?
I did submit a letter today to the attention of Amy. Would like to know if she has any feedback on that.
Well, I didn't get it until I came in at 7 o'clock tonight, so.
Did you?
Do you want to tell us, do you want to just tell us, why don't you come up and then just tell us the crux of that? And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the.
Oh, we didn't make a copy, so.
That's
No.
okay.
Um,
Pass it around.
So we were informed that we had encroached as
Okay.
well. We're coming from the same background.
So you mentioned?
We bought the property, there are no markers.
Right.
There is mention on the deed, but again, it's very difficult for an average person to try to decipher what the
Mhm.
boundaries are.
And what is the form of your encroachment on the property?
We have a playground, a wooded playground, and we have sand.
Okay. So the area that was wooded is now, the trees were, or some of the trees were taken off, and you've,
No.
No, we didn't take any trees down.
okay.
No. It just happens that water comes down from Hardwell Ave
Mhm.
and it floods our backyard.
Okay.
So when we were placing the playground, we were just looking for higher grounds,
Mhm.
and we placed the playground where
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
happens to be now.
No, but the conservation restriction is on the bound of your property, right? I mean, normally you would know where your property boundary is, though.
My property goes beyond.
Beyond
the
that, about like
conservation
at least
restriction.
30 feet.
Beyond the restriction.
Oh, yeah.
But the pool that was built in 2016 had the conservation restriction line on it.
The pool is
No,
not
the pool, it's not in the
restriction.
restriction.
We got a building
Right,
permit.
but the plans show the conservation restriction line, and the pool is right up against the line.
What
So when
does
the
that
pool
mean?
was built, it
No,
was.
that was a buffer zone. That doesn't say what the restriction.
No, it's the conservation restriction line.
But doesn't change anything, does it?
Well, it shows that you were aware when the pool went in.
Well,
that
when the
there
pool
was
were in, but now when have the playground in.
Right, so
So-
when you put in the pool,
Yeah, but.
on all the plans, the
well,
pool was
well, When I
located.
had the playground already in, so.
You
we
did or
the-
did not?
No, have the pool afterwards.
Yeah, the playground was
Playground
in.
was
The playground's been
Oh,
there,
before
yeah,
the pool.
yeah, the playground's
Okay.
been there
The
for at least 3
playground was
years.
in probably.
So when the conservation
Couple
line, conservation restriction line showed up on your pool plans,
The playground was already
the
there.
engineer didn't
No.
say anything about it?
And
Nobody
we
said
didn't
anything about
apply
it.
for the permit. The company who installed the pool did all the permitting
All the
for us.
paperwork.
They
Right.
did all
Yeah,
the
I
paperwork
saw
for
the building.
plans,
Right, so-
we didn't get involved with that besides paying the bill at the end.
Right.
So we're not aware of any enforcement
So the
at that
pool
point.
is out of the CR, but the playground,
And the volleyball.
and the
And the
volleyball
volleyball.
court, and those things, okay.
And-
I'm not sure if the pool is totally out.
Okay.
When you do the line of sight, it looks like something like.
So that's something that, I'll return that to you, that's something that Miss Deanne, when you approach her and give her photographs and things like that, to show her where the boundary is. Yeah.
What is it?
So this is out of our jurisdiction now.
Right.
So you have to be diligent to go to see if they're willing to grant you some sort of amendment. If not, it has to be brought back to the original property. So that would be wooded for the protection of the conservation restriction.
In this case, we didn't take any tree down, so
You've
Would be-
altered the original habitat. And so the conservation restriction means that it would be what it was before, whether it was trees, forested, ground cover. By adding a sand volleyball ring, area and things like that, you've disturbed the natural habitat of what would have been there. And that's what they were preserving, was the no access to that.
So our business is no longer with the Conservation Commission here?
Exactly, so
we
that's-
don't have to come to meetings or anything like that, we just.
So you-
It'll
So like
it'll
what you
circle
said
back
to your
here.
neighbor.
Yeah, it'll come back
If
to
they're-
us,
if they're in the
but
buffer.
basically now, we've informed you of what the process is, but now you have to be diligent to see how that's going to, what remedy that will be. And then what we ask is that your communication with the state, that you then let Amy know, or CC here on an email, or if you go and meet with Miss Deanne, just to keep us in the loop, so that way we know that you've been diligent to keep going with that.
okay.
And who is Miss Deanne?
So, do you want
She's
to email
The
her?
natural heritage. So it's the same person we were telling your neighbor to contact.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they're the ones who hold.
and they're in,
hold the
where's her
permit.
office?
Westboro?
Westboro, Mass.
Yeah.
And so, if you could get an appointment with her, I think it would be easier to kind of be in her office and show her photographs and where your lot line is as well.
Mhm.
It's easier than trying to explain it
And
on the phone.
explain that
Mhm.
the markers were never put in, so you had no
Right.
idea where the
Mhm.
line was.
So the conservation restriction is on
The deed,
these deeds, right? Of
Yes.
these-
right.
So it should be, so is it, when you get a map done of your property,
Right, but the
It should
map,
show, in
it's, I
addition to
don't
the
think that
boundary
the
lines
ma-
of the
I think it was what
property.
we're learning is that the proper maps weren't necessarily attached to that deed, or somewhat
Or
cumbersome.
the site survey
The
So-
maps
wasn't
aren't
obvious.
attached
So
to
the
the deed, they're referred to
surveyors-
as map plans, and the side notes on at least one of the deeds refers to the recorded
Oh.
plan.
Okay, so there you go.
So you have to
So it
go
is
through
recorded.
the separate
You
plan
have to
book.
find plans in a
Plan
separate,
books.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's there, but
it's digging and it's complicated and it's a pain. It's usually what the attorneys do.
And why this has come up now?
Because we were on adjacent property and saw it, and so we are obligated to report it.
well, we're also just reviewing all of
construction
the
occurring.
conservation restrictions
Mhm.
to make sure that they're all up to date and, because we've been a little bit behind in our
So why took
conservation
12 years to come up the decision?
Well, it took 12 years for us to review all our conservation restrictions and find out if.
It's a-
you know,
And
It's
there was
not-
a modification.
It's not something that we
the-
do annually.
No.
That's,
I mean,
that's,
but this letter, it was 2005, August 5th, 2005. Black Maple had 3 years from that. Beyond that 3 years, we're talking about another 10 years went by. We're just here because of
Mhm.
Black Maple.
I think it got brought up because Black Maple is trying to subdivide another lot, and then we went out exploring.
Okay, so something we might have to contact them, and they have to be involved with this, with all the expenses probably,
Yeah.
because it was that fall.
Sitting right back
I know,
there.
I saw him, so it doesn't matter. It's true,
we
it's
need to
true,
tell
so,
the same story.
right. That's the lawyer will find out.
Mr. McMahon's gonna just tell the same story. How, on the restriction, was there supposed to be a sign or something behind each lot? So that
Yes, a
people could
sign,
actually
but I
know,
think
is
at
that
one
what it
point,
was?
if you
The
went
plan
back,
markers.
if Barbara recorded the minutes, you went back, you'd find we thought about having a fence put along there. There was discussion in the meeting about that years ago.
Yeah, no, I believe you. I think I was part of that, but I can't remember the fence, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah,
'cause
we
we're-
talked-
'cause we're-
I mean, it was
we're-
thrown out.
That did not become part of the conservation.
Oh, we were
restriction.
concerned, that's because we were concerned
Yeah.
about this kind of thing happening. Yeah.
So we
But-
keep going.
It never happened.
The fence defeats the purpose, though.
Right, yeah, for the animals, yeah.
Wildlife
Okay.
movement.
Well, the only citation here, the permanent markers, doesn't say anything about
Right,
the
yeah, no
fence.
fence, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah, yeah,
Amy,
yeah.
can you just email them with Miss Deanne's contact
Yeah,
information?
do you have an email you can leave? You just have a phone number there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Carl, can you give him that back?
I have your email, so
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
I'll send
the
it
gentleman
at the
there.
same time.
He can,
and then-
no,
Can
give
I,
it to
can I
him.
send it as one email to
Yeah.
both of
Mr.
you?
McMahon?
That's-
Yeah, you can just give those both to him.
Oh, I guess both of us.
Okay. 810, I guess Cooper Farm Lot 14, R05-14.
Hi.
Mass Department 204-847, discussion of possible modified plan.
We'll go
The
back.
client, yeah, client that's interested in the lot, and they have their own house plan.
Okay.
So this is
This is Cooper Farm?
lot
This is
14.
one separate lot. So anytime when there's a modification to come in, do you want to just kind of go through?
Show me where lot 14 is.
So it's 25 feet off the, which is the setback from the
Yep.
front, and then it'll be in about 2.5 feet into the buffer zone. So you can see the original approved plan underneath
Yep, yep.
with the deck
Oh, I
here.
see, okay, okay. And that's because of the planning board offset from the street?
Yeah.
Right, which is what we're learning, that they never.
So we're gonna have everybody come in?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yep. But for
Yeah,
him,
I
it was
printed out
only,
both.
it was only a little bit of a change.
Yep.
Versus,
Well, it looks like there's only a deck in now versus
Well, there is a
part
deck.
of the back of the house before plus a deck.
Yeah,
I have
well,
the
no, there's a
before and
deck on the
after.
other plan too.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know, but it looked like part of the
No,
back
it's
of the
just a
house was
deck.
in too.
No, just a deck.
The house is
On-
gonna be in the
For the
50
new,
foot.
right, for the new one.
The new
but
one is
the
a little bit
old-
in.
only a little bit, yeah.
Right.
It's not tiny.
Oh, so this is the after.
What?
Well, we can't really
There's a
see.
light-
If
there's
you
a
look in this
light
one, there's a light
line.
line.
That's what he's saying, the light line
Is
is what
original.
was first approved.
The original deck.
Right.
The original house too.
Originally, the
But
house
that
was
little
out,
thing
the
that
deck
sticks
was
out.
in.
Yeah, that's a deck,
This
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yellow.
Yeah, so he's supposed to be pulling it out, right?
Well, here's the.
You can't because planning board moved this from the street in 25 feet.
Okay, so you're just,
The fields may or may not be asking the planning board for relief from this, from the 25-foot setback.
But for this,
okay,
so
but for how long? How long will that take to get relief?
They
Okay.
haven't asked yet.
Okay.
They've discussed it, but there's been no formal submittal.
so basically, the deck is in and some of the house.
But in the older proposed, the deck was already in.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's just-
It's about the same distance as
Right,
the house,
yeah.
yeah.
So how much further did it
It's roughly
extend?
about 2.5 feet, I think the guy said. He didn't put it on there, but.
Right.
This corner's in, but that's out.
The possibility, you might look at flipping it, so the garage, that shouldn't be there, 'cause that's the old garage.
Okay.
This garage is right here, you can see the street, the driveway. Flipping this
Mhm.
might make it a little bit better.
Okay. Is that something to consider?
Yeah.
So,
But the deck would have to come on.
No.
Well, putting the garage over
The
here.
deck
deck's already
was
approved.
already approved.
the deck was already on there.
50-foot no
Right.
build.
So what he's
It's
saying,
already like this.
Jim, he's saying is move this over here. So
Mhm.
just kind of swap the house a little bit, which could maybe do that a little.
Yeah.
Might, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to scale off the plan.
Yeah. Okay. I'd be amenable to the flipping.
Flipping the
it
garage over to
doesn't-
the left.
Right.
What if it doesn't do any
Um,
different, though?
It looks like it might push the left-hand side over, like, beyond the 50 feet of that.
Well, they might be able to, like, kind of turn it a little bit, because see how the line, the road kind of goes like that, and the
Yep.
50-foot goes like that.
So you're not gonna know until you actually play with it.
no.
Well, he just came up, I just asked him before.
But so there,
What about putting the garage pointing this way?
we can drive into it.
and then
There's not enough room to
curve?
come
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
tight lot.
from the side.
So I think
It has to be up front.
basically what's in front of you
There's an
is to
easement too.
approve the 2 feet change with the understanding that if he does flip it, it might be reduced, correct?
Mm, yeah.
Well, what we could do is, don't our new regs have a de minimis now?
No,
500?
they
No.
don't.
Well, I mean, the pro-
This is 50-foot no disturb zone.
So how
Right.
much into
But I
the
mean,
50-foot is
Propose
it?
somebody else, how come you won't? let
How
them
much
do it?
into the
It's about
50-foot
2.5
is the
feet.
deck? No,
Oh,
no,
the
from the
deck.
50-foot line, like how far from the wetland is the closest?
Deck, I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the closest point from the wetland to the edge of the deck? That's what I would be
50.
concerned with.
oh, well. Oh, to the edge.
Actually, that
oh, the
scale might
deck.
not be perfect on there, on the plan. though.
Where's the,
Where's your wetland line here?
Wait, but were these under the new or the old reg?
This is
assume
under
the
the
orange
old
line
one.
is,
This was
This is
under.
the old, but this is a new.
No, this was
Granted
under the new regs, but the waiver for what they had was granted because of extremely unusual circumstances, because the Board of Selectmen had approved.
Right.
There was that whole page
The host
Right.
of the
community.
waiver,
Yeah.
because no houses were gonna be in the 50-foot.
So it seemed like
Decks were, and
we have
grading
to be
was.
pretty stringent about keeping
Well.
it the way it was. Not
So then you wouldn't.
just-
the original deck's probably like 28. The new one's probably 25-ish.
But, I mean, if we're gonna change it, then you would have to have an alternatives analysis.
What if there was an option of taking the deck off and doing a patio instead? Either way, you still have, there's a door back here, you still have to put a, like a minimum 4x4 landing to have a set of stairs.
Yeah, you're gonna have.
By code, yeah.
If you reduce it to, in the amount that you're crossing over newly, I mean, I suppose we could.
Reduce what?
So,
Yes.
so are you saying bring the deck back to what it was originally in the original house?
To compensate, so
that
that
what
it
you're
would
saying?
be the same square footage within the 50 as the original plan, even with modifying the deck, it's the same square footage in the original plan.
So you're reducing the size of the proposed deck back to what was
Oh, yeah,
originally.
probably like a
Right.
That's what you're
9-foot
saying.
deck, maybe.
That would be reasonable.
Was that, the former deck was approved? Is that what we're
That was
saying?
approved.
Yeah.
So then we should, if that was approved, then I would just bring it back to that original.
Or the square
Footprint
footage
of
be
the deck.
equal to the amount that was in there originally.
Makes sense to me to bring it back to the original footprint of the deck. You're losing deck, but it's not our job to give deck space. Our job is to,
Yeah, but
deck's an amenity on a house.
Yeah, but you're dealing with.
Code, you have to have a minimum of 3x4 landing with a set of stairs to get out the back door.
So maybe go forward with reducing the amount of the deck and maybe changing the garage over to see if it changes the tilt.
Yeah,
And then
I'll look
see
at
what
that, yeah.
See what you come up with. See if you can have the square footage be back to the original.
If it doesn't make it
amount.
any better flipping it, you might be all right with just going back to the original deck and having,
Well, that was approved.
but having this corner of the house in the 50-foot buffer.
I don't think
I
you're gonna
guess-
get, I don't think you're gonna get anything in the 50-foot buffer,
Well, what I'm,
because you're falling under the new regs.
yeah, I mean, what I was saying is that what was approved before, if you can calculate the square footage that was within the 50 on this lot, and try to, with the new configuration, stay within the original square footage, by reducing the deck, whatever, see if you can
So
get it.
you're-
That
you're
doesn't, that doesn't,
reconfiguring impervious
that doesn't
house.
answer his question about the house being in the 50.
But it seems like we
But they're
can't
all
do much
impervious.
about it if the selectmen already granted a waiver.
No,
No,
For
that's
the
when they
original.
first did it. No, that's.
Not for this
that's
one.
Not for this, yeah, no.
They haven't formally been
Wellness.
asked by anybody for a waiver of their 25-foot setback.
Right.
I mean, if this is gonna be,
Personally, I would ask for the waiver for the planning board,
yeah,
and then you don't have to push your house.
Yeah. These people, they want to have it as far away from the street as possible, that's why.
But you have an opportunity to ask for the waiver, so I don't think that we would support the moving of any of that closer than what is already deemed. Because
Yeah, I
you
don't
do
think-
have alternatives.
I don't think that
It sets a
I don't think
precedent.
that should be pushed on us.
Right, yep.
I don't think that should be pushed on us to make these kind of decisions.
So if the house gets flipped and it ends up being the whole house out of the 50-foot buffer and the deck, roughly
Roughly the
not any
same.
further than where it was before, it's
Yeah.
fine that
Yeah,
way.
because
I
that's
think
what,
so.
that's what was
previously
approved. Yep.
approved.
That's
Yeah.
what I would think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
you can always go smaller, so. I know that's what you wanted to hear, but that's, I think, your best course would be planning board to see if you can get a waiver, if that's what the applicant wants.
Okay.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
If planning board's had questions, they can call Amy.
We've been having
What was that
discussions.
letter you read?
Discussion of Cobb Well, request for permit extension and discussion of pump testing.
Hi. What'd you learn, 15 days and 24 hours? That's a lot of water.
Yeah, no, it is, it is.
Laying down.
Yeah, so as you know, the water department's moving forward with development of the public water supply at Cobb's Pond. The next step is to conduct a pumping test in the month of June. 15 days, 1 million gallons per day on average, or maximum, I should say. That might be a little bit less than that. We have our current order of conditions. It was issued in 2011, and then it was extended by the Permit Extension Act, so it expires in April of this year. So we're requesting an extension to that, and then I provided a letter. Hopefully you guys had a chance to see a little bit of detail on the discharge location from the pumping test. Originally, it was intended to go essentially directly into the pond. DEP requires that the discharge be outside of the drainage area for the wells, so it needs to be at the outlet of the pond, essentially after the little dam on that
There's
private
a long
way.
hose.
It is, yeah, and it's a little over 1,500 feet,
Yeah.
so I mean, 3 hoses actually, so it's
Wow.
a mile of hose almost.
So do we have to do an impact study of downstream of that? Because that's,
Well, that's kind of why I'm here, I guess, in addition to requesting the extensions, to see
Right.
if that is a significant enough change to require anything like that. I mean,
I
essentially.
think it might be a
it's-
million gallons times 15. I mean, that's 15 straight days of pumping.
It ends up being 1.5 cubic feet per second, and that stream, the outlet of Cobb's Pond, the bank full flow is 11 cubic feet per second, so it's
Well,
only.
what's your time frame of this, though? Because there's usually good flow in that, springtime. So
Yeah,
that's, I mean,
yeah.
it is a wet area. So
Yeah, we're hoping to start on June 4th. That's the day we want to start the test. So it'd be
I
15
think it
days
depends
before.
on environmental conditions at that point. So if we have a really wet spring, that area is usually very saturated.
Mhm.
I know it well.
Cup doesn't need some
Capacity.
irrigation, do they?
I could ask them.
All go in the same place, just slower.
Yeah.
Irrigation pond, you can.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as,
Well, there is an irrigation pond there
Yeah.
on
I think
Cobb's
we would-
property. Cobb's property,
but
right?
I'm just thinking,
Okay.
I mean, it's
Go along that
sandy
good
soil
road.
there, if
Yeah.
he needed irrigation,
Yeah, but that's
That's
just-
a lot of water.
That's a lot of water.
There's a lot of
but at
water.
least took some of it.
I mean, I think I know that your letter indicated that you had contacted a butters,
Mhm.
but I'm also thinking if we have a saturated area and we have a stream, like from a flooding standpoint, have you looked at that at all?
If you're just saying depending on the weather conditions?
Yeah, like could you flood people's yards or, raise the,
I don't think it would flood anyone's yards. It might flood the Cubs farm fields.
Okay.
That's the only impact there would be, I think. I mean,
Yeah, but it's gonna go across this,
it's going to go under 119 eventually,
Yeah.
and
Be
then
going out
that whole
to the-
conservation
Well,
area
that's-
there. I think by the time it gets down there, it's going to be absorbed. There's so much wetland out in that way. But I mean, I haven't done a detailed study on it, obviously.
you should
then it'd be going
Engineering
into grist mill, right
calculations.
down to your
Because
house.
cups is, you couldn't do that to a farmer.
No.
Yeah.
Especially when they're
No.
planting.
Eventually.
Yeah, I mean,
do it in the summer.
1 or
when
2
it's
days,
dry.
but probably nothing, but for 15 days.
Well, and you also want to, if people's houses are near enough to the stream, you're going to raise groundwater and
I'm more concerned for the septic,
Septics and-
septic systems.
As long as it all,
Basements, I think
where's
we
it go
need-
from your, goes near you?
Well, it goes across 119
Yeah. It joins the Neshoba
and
Brook
starts
eventually.
going down
Does
into
that go into
Acton.
Neshoba Brook?
Yeah, yeah.
It is Neshoba Brook. It joins Neshoba Brook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Does
my-
green
my-
help us? Sorry,
Yeah.
Sarah, go ahead.
I think the challenge is the time,
Mhm.
that I think it could still be pretty wet, and I'm concerned that we would flood out the cup fields where that's their critical time
Yeah.
for agriculture, but then my primary concern would be septic systems of people. It's basically the reverse of the drawdown of, Matawanaki, so it's like we're adding water instead of taking it down.
They have a fire pond on the Cup property. I just don't know. if
Right,
it's-
but that would overwhelm, I mean, you're thinking how many millions of gallons, it's not that big of a pond.
Yeah.
Now, what's your time frame, though, if we were to extend it, it expires in April, could you wait until the drier portion of the year? Do it? Or is it you have
got
to
a
get it
crystal
done?
ball?
Well, what time?
Typically-
The
Like
thing
the
is,
first of the
it's an
well.
extremely expensive test that we have to hire a contractor for. It's going to cost about $300,000.
Right.
So we can't make decisions based on weather. It has to be, this is the date we're starting, no matter what, and it's going to happen.
I don't know
That's,
that you can do that with that type of impact. If there is a risk, and I'm assuming they would have insurance for that, if you do, say, whatever day, and then you have significant rains or high water, you wouldn't be allowed to do it. So this isn't an end-all, be-all, so we certainly have to think of the streams below.
Right, if there's something happened during the test, obviously DEP and us would make a
Or
decision
even,
together.
or even
but-
prior to the test.
But I'm saying, we can't, no contractor is gonna work for us if we tell them, we'll let you know the day before.
No, I
you know
mean, I can appreciate
Yeah.
that, but there are situations that could occur that you wouldn't be able to do it.
Right, during the test, yeah.
What about frac
This-
tanks to let it more
Yeah.
gradually?
This is the municipality, it's,
I was thinking
which
that
I
too,
think could be
containers.
something different.
Adds to the
would be
expense.
handled differently too.
A tank to hold 15 million
Frac
gallons.
tank, yeah.
It's like the gas
We
company
use
digging
that
up the
at
road.
Superfund sites to hold,
It'd have to be
Well-
monsters.
It would be-
No, I know.
That'd be
That would be
monsters.
enormous.
yeah,
There's
that'd
no way.
be big.
Our
It's
storage tanks
expensive to
are only
rent one.
like at Oak Hill, that large tank, that's only 2 million gallons. It'd have to be 7 times bigger than the Oak Hill tank. There's no way we could get a tank like that down there.
I
And
think,
maybe push it off to a theoretically drier time of year, like early July. Early June's probably,
It's gonna be wet.
It's iffy.
Especially-
Wet.
especially
It was really
in
wet
that
last
area.
year,
doesn't mean July won't be, but
right?
Um,
August.
I think we should, ought to at least extend the permit, so that
Mhm.
that's covered,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
do whatever research you gotta do and get back to us,
We
maybe.
could, extend it to the drier, beyond the drier period, so you have an option to,
oh,
To
the
have it
permit
done.
is as much for the
Them to
pumps
do it.
and the well house and all that stuff
Yeah.
itself,
Yep.
as well as the pump test, so.
so it has to be actually
So the
extended quite a
permit
bit.
has a lot more behind it than
Right.
just this pump test.
Yeah, even after the pump
2
test, it's
year
gonna be a lot
extension.
more, so we'd like to get the
Extension.
permit extended so that we,
How long do you want the permit extended for?
I mean, if you can do it up to 3 years, it's gonna take at least that long to build everything out, so.
We've extended it once already, so the originally.
It was not, it's not going to extend it.
Well, right.
The
as it is,
Permanent
yeah.
Extension Act automatically extends
Right,
it,
yeah.
Right.
so.
So, they're asking for 3 years would
That's fine.
not be unreasonable.
No, it's
Yeah,
fine.
And that should
Right.
give you the time, if it gets wet, you can't do it, then you got another year or a different,
Well, no, we have to do it this summer for sure. We can't wait a year to do the pumping test, but
Right.
the, yeah.
it gives you some latitude,
Yeah.
is what I'm
Great,
saying.
so we're gonna issue, do you want a motion on that, or?
Yes.
I move that we extend the permit for extension of 3 years.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye. So the 15-day pumping test is standard protocol, is that what
It is for this specific situation.
There's
for-
no alternatives?
No, for bedrock wells, it's 15 days.
Can't dump it back in Nagog, can you?
It'd be trickier. We'd have to cross the road.
There's a water body, you ought to handle it.
It's really not that far.
Is there a
Really
culvert
not
or
that far,
anything there
going
that
over.
hosing
Yeah,
could go
but
through?
you-
No.
Yeah, but I mean,
Culvert's
how many
further.
million gallons or
That'd be a long
They could-
course.
capacity, I mean, that's, you could really impact water quality with, depending on what's in the mineral, whatever minerals are in the groundwater.
It's pretty
I'm not
clean
sure
water. It's
we
just-
want to do that without it.
It's just some
Well,
radon in the water. It's
groundwater
pretty
is
clean
probably
water.
cleaner than the surface water.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just different, you
Yeah.
know, like usually for permits,
Well,
you
we
know,
make it
for
better.
stormwater or other, you know, you can't change the temperature more than a certain amount, the pH, blah, blah,
Well,
blah.
That
That's all I was
definitely would
thinking.
take consult with
We
the
got 'em.
town of Concord.
So,
Is
I don't know if
Brian-
this is
are they
guidance or
drawing
not,
for
but I
that?
think you've heard our
Are they drawing
concerns
from
specifically for
Nagog
the
Pond?
time of year,
Are they
for
using
cup,
it?
for the volume of water, and
Huh?
also septic systems.
Yeah, so,
They're
so
not
what's,
using it, wouldn't make any difference.
what do you need me to come back to?
Well, I
No.
think you're gonna have to try and do some type of impact study.
Versus,
I think you'd have to try and be diligent to
Fish.
really try and look at the downstream volume,
Mhm.
I see what you
um,
mean.
Because of-
and what those streams can handle.
Yeah.
And maybe alternative.
I just don't think that those
And
streams can
maybe
handle it.
what sensitive areas might be down there, because there might
Right.
not be anybody just do a quick.
Yep.
well, engineering calculations, I mean, if we want to do, you know, someone wants to do stormwater and create, I mean, we're, you know, it's not an impervious surface, but you're introducing
Yeah.
a lot of water to an area, so how is it gonna infiltrate? Is it gonna
Is it better to
flood
just dump it
sensitive
in the brook
areas?
and see if
I mean, I
the
don't know if
brook
Chris
can
has-
handle it?
I don't- I think
Chris
it's
has
too-
enough
down
engineering.
through.
It's too much water.
Which brook?
It's just a lot of
The one
water.
that goes underneath
You'd have to
119.
notify
but I
Yeah,
mean-
that's what we're
That's
planning
what
on.
they're doing.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just
There has to
saying,
be an impact study.
if you
Yeah.
could dump it right
And the
there,
neighbors need to be notified.
and just let it,
Yeah,
see whether the capacity and the culverts and stuff could handle it to go downstream.
I think you'd have to really do an impact study for that, and the neighbors certainly need to know about it, so you know, like, where the wells are and where the septics are.
Septic.
Well, I'm septic next to the ponds and,
Right.
What neighbors are those?
well, the ones that I would think.
The neighbors down the entire
Apple
length
Dior.
of it? Because the immediate
The farm
abutters,
pond.
no.
Probably Cup.
Anybody who
Cup
may
for
be
sure.
effective, I guess.
You don't wanna flood out the horse barn.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's aware that we're gonna be conducting this test,
Yeah,
but.
but
There's a
I'm
house
saying-
right on the,
Water's
a
gonna
couple
go,
houses right on the
obviously.
stream.
Maybe the
Or
farm's
greenhouse.
Oak Meadow,
Yeah,
Because that's pretty flat
it's a
down there.
big
yeah,
septic
yeah, it
system.
is.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
All right, so I guess we'll do some kind of, have our engineers do some kind of impact study. That shows that even under wet conditions, it won't cause a problem, because we're not gonna be able to predict the weather, obviously, we're gonna have to
Good.
do the tests regardless.
Yeah,
Good luck.
or any other areas that if you, how about up on the conservation land, I mean,
You're talking about pushing it up to the,
yeah. Or have 2 or 3 options of where you put the water that day. Split it up.
Yeah, I don't think, that's not gonna be practical though, because to run hose multiple miles.
I know what Jim's saying is that to get the job done, if there's, if there's
Spray
only.
in the air to evaporate
If you're
it.
trying to get the job done, we might have to be creative, because otherwise we're sitting here not knowing where we're gonna dump water.
Yeah, I think that's, I
Yeah,
think
it's
the
so
outlet of the
hot.
pond is pretty much the only place to put it, unless you wanna cross the road all the way to
Yeah.
Magog. That's
Then you get
about
the
only-
beavers that are still in that pond. Who knows what's going on in that
It's,
pond?
it's an option,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
half a day one way and half a day another way. Just, you gotta
Yeah.
think it through.
No, that's
So
true.
as it has absorption in one area and then absorption in another area.
Yeah, putting it all in one spot, there's a lot of water.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thanks, Corey.
You would think to be an alternative to that, because other communities must have the same problem, and where they dump their water, and especially in more urbanized areas.
So 73,
How many of them
All
are
right,
putting in
can
new
we
wells?
keep-
Before,
A lot
so,
of
don't
times.
forget, we need to ratify these.
yeah, we'll just start signing.
Oh,
I
should I be
don't, no, we
passing
don't need
on?
to sign or anything, I just
Oh.
need a vote to
Ourselves.
ratify 'em.
We did.
Oh, we did that.
We did, right?
This
the
is
very
Was that to
beginning.
ratify, or was that just the?
No, that's, we took the vote. We're all set.
Never mind.
All right,
Yeah.
73 Hartwell Ave,
I would look for an
204
alternative. I would say if there's another one.
859. Just gotta go back in the lake, in the reservoir.
Huh?
Gotta go back in the
What,
reservoir.
Nago?
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, Ted Doucette and Glenn Berger for 73 Hartwell Avenue. We were here a few weeks ago, and at that time, we were given some marching orders. What we're hoping to do tonight is to show you what we've done for those and get any type of final marching orders to submit a final plan. Is this something I can recall? That's the plan, that's not the plan I submitted, sorry. I'm the one discussing. Yeah, this is the one I submitted, so we'll go with that first. At the last hearing, there were a couple of issues. The commission brought up the fact that they were concerned about snowplows coming in and scraping into the 50-foot buffer zone, and suggested some sort of boulders put in there. So you can see those are on the plan, and there's a note over here saying that they need to be minimum diameter of 3 feet to be placed no more than 6 feet from each other at the limit of the 50-foot no disturb area. Like I said, the location is shown there. Let's see. So there, another concern brought up by the commission was that you were concerned about the contractor developing this site, clearing an area greater than necessary and possibly into the 50-foot no disturb zone. To address this concern, the construction sequence on the revised plan requires a contractor to flag all trees greater than 6 inches that would be removed from the conservation, be removed for review by the conservation administrator. I believe that's something that we talked about at the last meeting on how to resolve that issue. During the hearing, a butter also brought up that the drainage for the house, for the proposed house, was not big enough because it was a couple of dry wells. So we've expanded that and put in more of a lateral system rather than something that's deeper. And to allow for infiltration, there's going to be 2 systems. Roof drain system will collect and discharge into here and in here. These are plastic infiltrator chambers is what I'm proposing to have, underlain by 6 inches of stone. And the capacity of this, or the volume of this, is equal to about 3.2 inches of rain over this impervious area.
If it's more than that, what happens? Overflow?
Yeah, it'll overflow with the roof drains here.
Over the surface.
Yeah, yes.
When I went out on site, I think I was most struck by the grade, the elevation changes to the back of the house and how steeply it goes down.
Mhm.
My concern is addressing down gradient of that and how this house and that land would be stabilized going down into that, which is then the conservation restriction area.
Mhm. Okay. We want to move on to that, or we talk about, we finished, Anna, with the,
If there's more to say about where the water goes, if it's over 3 inches, which we probably will have.
well, yeah, in a 24-hour period, well, actually, in a
Said that
48-hour
twice
period,
in the last year.
they're also designed to drain completely in 48 hours. Well, not designed, but that's based on the perk rate, that's what we'll have.
Okay.
So, do you want to address that, move on to,
Yeah, you think, so in other words, if it's more than 3 inches, you think that over that period of time, it will have absorbed enough so that it will keep absorbing?
well, over 3.2 is a lot. Is it 3.3 or is it 6.1? You know what I'm saying? So, if these, you're basically asking if the volume of these is exceeded, what's going to happen?
Yes.
Right. It will overflow at the downspout area, and it'll be able to either infiltrate into the ground or to follow the contours and flow downhill. So there's downspouts here that would, and this is the grading in this direction. There's a downspout here and here, which the grading is then in that direction.
So it'll basically flow where it would have flowed.
Flowed.
Yeah.
Flowed, if the house wasn't there.
Right.
You're basically guiding it to where it would have been.
Right. Where the general contours of the land are remaining the same. The general drainage pattern is remaining the same, where there's a high point in here, so the things that are going down on this side, the water will continue to go in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah. And as far as you're concerned during construction, what's going to happen here?
No, I'm thinking even long-term, like sheet flowing, coming off the roof, kind of coming down off into that area,
Off the roof?
off the whole site.
Okay, because the roof will go here.
Yeah.
All the roof will go here. And then this is all just, it's going to be revegetated. Imagine this would be revegetated with lawn or other
And this is where all
vegetation.
the boulders are from the neighbor.
Correct. Well, on the other side of the line, but yes, yeah.
And all those, so where's the reserve? That's the reserve area?
The reserve is in here, yes.
Okay. So are any trees or any vegetation going to stay in this area, or is that all being cleared?
We are making no statement on what could happen there. Whoever develops it is going to have the option of doing that. I am assuming that you're back into here, they're going to want some sort of lawn area for entertaining, gathering, growing bushes, grass.
No, that's the 50, right? From here to.
The 50 is here. 100 is out here.
Buffer zone, but not within the 50 on.
And where's the conservation?
Conservation restriction line is here.
When you build a house, how far around the house do you typically, want trees to not be close?
Right.
How close is to house for a tree to be to a house?
I haven't built a house. If you
How
have
close
any
is
thought,
close?
I mean, here, can I address, you want to answer that question for
No,
me?
go ahead.
Well, I'd say 6 to 10 feet, 5 to 10 feet, and to address that, I mean, it depends on the size of the tree as well.
Yeah, so I don't
How tall
know,
is the tree?
10-inch,
Which tree?
10-inch DBH,
Yeah.
30-foot
50
tree.
feet?
So a 10,
Tree is 50 feet?
yeah, 30 feet, 10-inch DBH.
How far?
Yeah, how far from a house should that be?
I don't know.
You're
I
an
mean,
engineer, you're a
to me,
builder.
there's-
How,
10 feet.
how far should trees be from houses?
10 feet,
10
a
feet?
big tree.
So we heard that there was some sort of concern, that when commissioners went out there, that there was concern that the house. So what we can do, and what we've laid out a preliminary plan here, is we're able to move the house this direction an additional 6 feet. And we took note of the larger trees that were in this area, and we show them on the plan now. So there's a 10-inch, an 8-inch, there's some 4, 6, and 8s here, and there's a 6-inch here, that we're now 6 more feet further away from.
So the plan shows that in its current state, that the 6 feet.
This is the plan that, this is a working plan. This is, if the commission likes this and approves it, this is what I plan to resubmit for a final plan for 6 feet away, or for an additional 6 feet.
Have you had to ask for any variances from the planning board?
No, planning no.
Any variances for Board of Health?
Only from their local regulations.
Can you explain which ones you've asked for?
Yes, let's see. Let's see. We're gonna be asking for, we already asked for a fill to a property line, because the Board of Health regulations only allow you to, if you are filling within 10 feet of a property line, you have to notify the abutters, and then they have opportunities to come out and look at it. This is, we're filling, this is the only place where we're within 10 feet of a property line. Highway Department has come out, because they're the abutter of concern, and they've looked at it and they're okay with the plan. The Board of Health regulations require a maximum perk rate of 40 minutes per inch. There's a perk down here on record as 52 minutes per inch, so we've designed on a 60-minute for the reserve. Up here, it's 30 minutes per inch, and that's what we're designing on there. So we're asking for a variance to the 40-minute per inch restriction to allow for a 60-minute per inch, which meets Title V, to be used to show the regulatory required reserve area. One thing that they have, their regulations say that you have to notify abutters by certified mail. Common practice is to use proof of mailing, which is kind of, it's not formalized, so I'm asking for a variance since I use that instead of certified mail. I'm asking for a variance from that.
So you
And
need a variance for how close that road is to that lot line?
no, there's nothing in planning board that I know of that regulates driveways to property lines. I've run into that, because I looked at the city of Lowell says you can only be so close to a property line, but I have never seen anything from Milton. And that is,
So I think a couple things we talked about in one of the previous meetings was the infiltration in the soils based on where some of these test data was, or is based on the house. Can you talk a little bit in terms of what some of these perk rates were? And I think that'll help us with understanding drainage a little bit more on that site.
okay. So as I said, down here, I believe it's 52. This one was actually failed, so it was greater than 60 minutes per inch. Up in here, there was a record one that was, look, I think it was 28 minutes per inch. And then we've gotten a couple 30s in here that are not on record, but because this is the regulating one. That's a deep test hole, that's not a perk.
Comes back to your question about infiltration and this here, where you've got, what, 3 inches? So in not great soil.
Oh, so yeah, the closest perk area was here, you said?
There's one here. And then we had some informal that we did in here. No, that's a deep test hole. So for Title V, you have to do 2 deep test holes, 1 per each area, so that's how we tested. So, it'll be 2 deeps and 1 perk there.
So your site varies from 28 to 60?
Yeah.
That's a huge variance. Is that like moraine?
I'm
It's
gonna
like
try. It's-
moraine and till?
It's pine trees, and some boulders, so, glacial till is what I commonly call it.
And then it goes down the hill.
Yes, yeah.
Just got a question.
Do you have a comment or a question?
Question, can I ask a question?
You just have to state your name again.
Lilia Flores, 51 Ardwell. Based on the public records, this partial is saying that it's an unbuildable lot. And hearing there was very little variances, what was the reason that was deemed unbuildable then and now it's a proposal of a house going on?
That's a good question.
Where did you see it was unbuildable?
Can I answer? There's nothing that says it was unbuildable.
Do you?
Realtor told a buyer that it was not buildable
Oh.
inappropriately.
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
Do you want to address that?
Public records, I just went to public records and it says unbuildable land.
Well, excuse me, that's because it remained a parcel. Until you submit for septic system and conservation, it's a parcel. It's not a buildable lot. We paid our taxes based on it's just a piece of land. Until we do the design work and get it approved by Conservation and the Board of Health, it's a parcel. So, still a parcel until it's approved. I'd like to just, if I may, digress to something that was said earlier. There was a concern about one of the paragraphs in the Mesa document about everything had to be done within 3 years. There was a concern there.
Section 1.
Section 1. So in the deed, I think it's for, in the deed, it even mentions, what the document is, what the page is, and it also ends with, as affected by a permit extension August 2010, and a further extension through August 2016. So that was the Permit Extension Act that was mentioned earlier from the recession. All building permits that affected lots, because everything slowed down, were extended, and then extended again.
So just to, while Mr. Berger was talking, I looked at a little bit more of the perk rate. So in the back here, there was also a, on the previous testing, there was a 24 minute per inch back here for the previous testing on record in this area here. And then in this area here, we had 38 minutes per inch. So one guy who didn't know how to conduct a soil test properly, that got me the 52.
Now, Sarah, you mentioned before that you're concerned about this, the grade here?
Yeah, how it
Steepness.
kind of slopes away.
Well, I mean, is there a way to, I don't know, have a rain garden or some sort of swale here to have some absorption so it wouldn't go so fast?
Well, it's tiered and leveled. It's level and then steep and then some tiering here and then another tier in this area. It's going to be, when I look at it as a worst-case scenario, it's probably going to be lawn, right? That's probably what you're looking at as worst-case scenario. And that's,
So
if there's-
it's within the 100-foot jurisdiction, so you can put, plantings, you can put certain orders in this now.
Yeah, I would encourage, after that second steep grade there, to put some sort of natural slowing vegetation that would slow the velocity of the water there.
I'm going to, if we're going to do that, I would like to do it out at here. Probably show it out here right on, it might be a good idea to put it right on the
Conservation restriction?
restriction.
I wouldn't do that because then you're altering an area that's not even going to be altered. That's not appropriate. It would be within the footprint of construction,
Okay.
because that's our jurisdiction.
And is this a stone wall, or is that your?
That's just my wattle symbol, yeah.
Oh, wattle, yeah. Yeah, I would do it within the work area, definitely.
So are you building this?
No, they're
I
just
don't
selling
think
it.
so.
Or you're selling it? So, okay, so is it realistic then to, I'm just looking at our section 1.4 bylaw waivers from regulations, strict compliance. So is removing trees so that you can access like that corner of the site or have a safe distance from a house? I mean, if someone can't do that, can they build this? I'm just wondering if,
Yeah,
like,
I
the
actually wasn't clear
interpretation.
on that discussion when you said you moved the house, if that,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
didn't have
if-
to take down any trees in the 50-foot?
I mean, that would be a waiver, right?
There's just the biggest one is a 10-inch, which is about, I don't know, about 12, let's see here.
Within the buffer.
Well, in the buffer zone,
In the 50
Within the
foot.
50.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's about 15 feet. We have a 10-inch tree about 15 feet away from the house, which falls within the 50-foot and an 8-inch tree there. And then there's a grouping of 4, 6, and 8-inch trees that are about
So
12 feet,
What
which
precludes you from moving the house an extra few feet this way? Because of the
the
reserve
fact that we
area?
already moved it 6 feet, and the reserve area is going to be over here, yeah.
The person I'm just concerned about okay, we've got approved plans and it's sold, and then someone's actually gonna try to implement this, and it's, like, I don't want a tree 6 feet from my house or 10 feet, like a huge, I'm just trying,
No, I
an
hear you.
honest, practical sense from the tree's gonna grow bigger, you're gonna have squirrels on your roof, you're gonna have
Well, the trees aren't
and
going to
then,
grow.
and then this waiver, if we have to, does this require us to grant a waiver to make this actually truly buildable? So how does that fit within our bylaws? I don't
Well,
understand
you
how
can
that
also
fits
go
in our
for a
bylaws.
variance for, in that.
Or the people that get it sold to, that's
But
my
keep them-
concern.
I mean, this area can be adjusted a little bit, and the house can
Mhm.
be adjusted a little bit as well, so.
I just have concerns about approving a plan that
has
is
to be
based
it has to
upon
be
a waiver
practical.
for cutting a tree. I don't see where that fits.
We haven't asked for a waiver.
In our, no, you
but
haven't, but
the
we
next
can't,
person
I don't
would.
see how we can approve a plan that has trees that close.
But how do we determine what's the correct comfort level with the tree distances?
No removal within the 50, the house isn't here, and so, the way, again, I'm asking, the interpretation of this bylaw to get the waiver is in the public interest, necessary to avoid a taking, necessary to prevent a safety hazard or water dependent, and consistent with the intent and purpose of the bylaw, and the least environmentally damaging practicable alternative. So what I'm wondering is, how do we approve this plan that isn't going to then request a future waiver for a tree cutting, because it's gonna happen. I mean, you could thread the needle and stick it there, but then the owners are gonna be back here asking to remove these trees because they're too close to the house. So that's what I'm asking.
Well, if we're not allowed to cut these trees, and they're deemed by the commission to be too close to be practically build a house, could that be determined to be a taking, and that they have to be allowed to be cut down? I think that's is that similar to what you're asking? Because you said in there, in order to prevent a taking. If you say we can't cut down these trees, we can't build this house because these trees are here, and you don't let us cut down the trees, is that a taking?
I don't
And
believe that's
that's
the
your-
interpretation of a
Okay.
taking.
Okay.
You just build a
That's
smaller
not-
house, if
yep.
that's what it comes
Yeah.
to, so.
So as far as moving it, we moved it 6 feet, and we could move it another foot if we had to.
What would that change in terms of tree cutting? If you
Nothing?
moved it another foot?
Nothing?
Right now, they're saying there is no tree
There is
cutting in
no
the
tree
50 foot.
cutting.
And the question is that realistic? For a person who may
Which way would it go?
be building this 3 years from now?
This way.
Yeah, who knows?
So if you moved it another foot, what would be the closest tree then, that potentially they would want to cut down?
Or you make it clear
16
to
feet
someone.
instead of 15 feet. But that's putting my reserve area.
But
Over that way, we
15
know.
feet is plenty for a tree.
But I mean, we have allowed people to cut selected trees down if they threaten a house. So
Right,
it's
exactly,
not
at
safe.
existing houses. It is
Yeah.
safety,
Yeah.
exactly. Not at a house that hasn't been built yet.
Yeah,
That's
but-
predicated, that plans are predicated on, oh yeah, you can come back to the commission later. That's where I'm just trying to get the appropriate interpretation, because you have plans, but in reality, you can't implement the plans without disturbing the no disturb. Is that a plan? That's the
Well, they can
basis of my
implement it.
comment.
You're saying, are you saying in the future, they would have concerns
These are
because the
big,
trees would grow up?
they're
or-
really big trees. I wouldn't want them close to my house. You know, from a construction standpoint, it would be threading the needle.
And they're inside the 50.
So can you approve plans predicated on removing trees within the 50-foot no disturb for a house that doesn't exist? It's different if the house exists and it's threatening the house.
But you can do it, it's just
Well, it would
whether
definitely
you
be,
want
it
to.
would be on the
Right.
plans and in the order.
I mean, you can say in the order of conditions, you know, owner is allowed to cut this 8-inch tree, this 10-inch tree, and these on the buffer zone. You can say that.
Or you can say the reverse.
Yeah,
You
and
can-
Yeah.
if it's
You can
cart
have them
coursing.
locate the trees on the plan, the specific ones, with reference to it. And the order of conditions can state that. You can cut during construction.
But then at that point, you're saying, is it really a buildable structure? And can you really approve it because these trees are too close? Or
I don't
someone may
wanna-
feel these trees are too
I
close.
don't want to approve a plan that's predicated on the removal of trees within the 50, because I think that's cart horsing, and I don't think that is within the spirit of the bylaw.
Right. But who's
I would
going
like
to
to
be?
accommodate
yeah.
and figure out a solution, but I think that tree situation is cart horsing, and if you know it's, you know darn well it's gonna need to be removed, but, you know, someone's gonna have to deal
So
with
you
it
could-
later.
15 feet is a comfortable distance from the house.
You could,
It's
we
not
could,
gonna be
we
over
could
that.
write it right in as a special condition
Yeah.
that,
But he's
That
saying
nut, this
it's
tree-
comfortable distance. He's
no,
a
the
comfortable
10,
distance.
the closer one, there was a 10, wasn't there one?
Yeah, I thought there
That's-
was one quite a bit closer.
There's a 10-inch at 15,
Said
there's an
16.
8-inch at about 16, and then there's an 8, a 6, and a 4 at about 10. And they're all deciduous, I don't know what.
During
number.
construction, those are gonna come
Deciduous.
down. The 4, the 6, those will come down.
Yeah, yeah, and if they're
They're,
outside the buffer,
they're-
they're outside
as
the
far as I
buffer.
can tell, they are on the line within inches on
So
the
then I
50-foot
would
line.
just say a special condition that these trees, and you name and show on the plan those trees that
And then we can
cannot be
flag
cut.
them.
And then it's up to
Yeah.
the,
Just
then
like
it's
we
up
did
to
with
the,
DCU.
it's up to the owner to, if he wants, I mean, it's up to the buyer if they
can
want to buy it
survey
or
'em,
not.
Just put a Travis point in and survey 'em.
It's,
Well, for
it's,
DCU, that was an existing building though.
No, those trees that we, in terms of we mark them on the plans, which ones?
But they had compensation, they gave us things back for that,
Right.
which I don't.
Well, but they're saying they're not gonna have to cut the trees.
Right.
Just the next guy who might come in and say, I need
Right.
to cut the trees.
Right.
Well, I mean, but if you're saying that 15, 16 feet is a comfortable distance, I don't know if we could go against that.
Let's make a decision. So, you still have to come back with your approval of variances, correct? With your Board of Health?
yes, going tomorrow night, expecting that the variances, the request to be approved.
So, this would be
And
continued.
natural heritage.
Oh, do you want the update on there on National Heritage, or was that covered in the previous hearings?
That was not covered.
No, because natural heritage is somewhat specific to this lot also.
Okay, so-
Kinda getting it from both sides.
That was the next item. So regarding the permit from Natural Heritage, there were two concerns they had before issuing the amendment. Developing a turtle management plan and installing the post. And then subsequently, the one about the violations came up recently. So the posts have been installed as well as can be done right now, and the turtle has been delisted, so that's no longer a concern.
And we have that in writing from them.
It's got to be an email from somebody.
Miss Deanne wrote a letter questioning whether or not the chain of ownership of the conservation management permit basically had been broken because of what's on the deed. And I hadn't read, it hadn't clicked to me the 1-year, condition 1 had the 3-year thing. You know, I do think the fact that it was on the deed, whether or not it was clear or not, broke the chain, but it's not clear if Natural Heritage will buy into that, especially if that condition 1 that has to be done within 3 years
So it sounds like you need to clarify.
falls in there or not.
Yeah, we're actively.
So
working on
I
it,
was
yeah.
going to send Miss
Right.
Deanne an email and say that, you know, I have looked at the deeds, I looked at them before and said, you know, it is on the deeds. But I'm not sure what she's going to do about the condition 1, the 3-year thing.
Okay, but right on the deed, I have a copy of one here.
Okay, but
It
you have-
mentions
we
to
have to have
extent,
her interpretation.
okay, but it's an extension of the permit, 2 extensions to 2016.
If you can run that.
So
through.
that would extend the 3-year period.
Yeah, right.
It's within the permit, not just the effectiveness of the permit. I guess that was the last bit of the trail I wanted to follow.
Okay.
So my suggestion is to keep this open for one more hearing. Is there anything else that you're asking the applicant to look at on this plan or make conditions of? So what I've heard is that it's gonna slide another foot, and that we're gonna,
Okay, good.
and then we're going to mark the trees on the plan as well?
Well, if they don't have to cut them though, I wouldn't think they have to mark them.
Well, if you're gonna make it as an order of conditions.
I would-
then you're
I would
They need to
include-
be identified.
They have to be
I would identify the
on plan.
You
tree,
may not cut these.
just so the perch, whoever comes in and buys it, knows that there's a tree that cannot be cut.
Oh, marking trees that can't be cut
Right.
rather than can't be cut.
Right.
All right.
And did you want consideration of extra vegetation?
Yes, at the
top
base
of that
of the
slope,
slope.
or,
At the base of the slope.
well, the base of the reserve slope, yeah.
Yeah, base of the reserve slope should have vegetation. Not, it doesn't have to be really tall, but it has to be tall enough to slow the water and absorb the water as it comes down.
Are you thinking maybe in ground planting type stuff, or
Shrubs,
combination?
Shrubs?
grasses and
You're
shrubs.
concerned about surface water?
Taller grasses and shrubs.
Oh, grasses. All right, because shrubs, I don't, yeah.
Or shrubs at the border.
Because the roots make a difference, so.
Yeah.
All right, these are new items from the last time. What about the items that we brought back this time? Are those gonna get kicked down the road to be discussed with these things, or can we get some?
Which are you referring to?
The rock barrier?
We want in.
Those are-
Right, that's in, is it
those are fine.
satisfactory?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
Okay,
fine.
and the drainage, is the drainage satisfactory?
I
I
thought it
haven't looked
was.
at thoroughly, so I'm not the one that's gonna say yes on it.
I mean, is the structure, the type of structure you've seen before? The
These,
infiltration cross section?
These are sort of basically Coltech
yeah.
type design, which you have approved before. I don't know nothing about the engineering for the size of them, but this is certainly what
Right.
you've seen before.
The
Okay.
volume is equal to a 3.2 inch storm from the roof, which.
And does that follow the stormwater reg?
So if the roof gets smaller, you would have even more capacity.
Right. Now, that's a good point. I mean, this is the maximum size house that is gonna be put on this lot.
And why did you pick the design to 3.2, or is that just
I
what
got
you maxed
lucky.
out at?
I got lucky. Well, I just put in as many as I could reasonably fit in there, and then I did the volume check, and it came out 3.2, which is what, a 3-year storm, which is a kind of a threshold. So, I would just, being an engineer and dealing with stormwater, I listen to the radio when we get a big storm, and I can't remember the last time we got a 3.2 inch.
Last summer,
Storm.
3.76.
Yeah. So,
These guys remember.
Over 24 hours, yeah.
I know Matt
Yeah.
knows
Yeah.
exactly when the.
5
got
minutes.
bigger.
So,
Yeah,
so it sounded like when I say I got lucky, it's kind of a threshold, we designed for a 2-year storm.
And
Okay.
I have one other thought. Do we need maybe more wetland flags to make it clear where that boundary is, or stakes or something?
Which boundary?
Just this guy.
The 50? Yeah, I mean, if you want to put that in a condition, that's fine to put in condition.
Yeah, I guess it would
where,
be wetland flags.
we can,
If
put
it's
up
just
stakes.
threading the needle, I just feel like
Well-
it should be demarcated.
Right, well, we plan on putting, the, wattles. No,
Well,
wattles,
I was just gonna say that, actually.
wattles.
Yeah.
Because it's, kinda goes down. I'd probably put that in the condition.
Okay,
We'd put the
so that'd be
construction
condition.
storefronts on that.
Okay.
Then there's a ton of Japanese knotweed as well, so if
To have that removed.
something happens, or just deal with it appropriately, I think it's within the 50.
Where's that?
It's just
So
a
you think-
massive stand.
We'd put a condition on that,
About what?
to have, you wanna have it removed?
The knotweed, well, I don't,
You
it's,
can't.
we
Well,
can't, it's within the,
Yeah.
no,
Maybe
just
dispose-
if,
if they have to dig anything up,
yeah, if
dispose
it
of
gets
properly.
cut down, just
To
get
dispose of
disposed
it.
of it properly.
Right.
Okay.
That's a condition.
Incineration, like not composting at the transfer station. It's really bad.
So only the area that they're gonna be disturbing.
Right.
is
Right.
Treatment of the area.
Yeah, if it's
Right,
within
right,
the
right,
50,
right.
that,
Right,
Yeah,
that'll be
that's
a
that.
condition.
okay, okay.
And this right now is just wattles, and I think You agree that's fine?
It's what?
It-
Oh, just wattles?
Wattles, you don't need the silt fence too.
That's pretty steep. I wouldn't have
It is
chosen
steep.
wattles, so I would go with siltation and hay bearing.
At least on the east side.
Wattles and erosion control. 12, what is those, 9 inch, I think, on the plan? Does it,
I think it should,
That's right.
9 inch.
With siltation as well.
On which areas?
Does it have to be, yeah, which areas, not everything.
So how about from here, do around here, and then go back to Waddles?
That's fine, because that's agreed with that.
Yeah, it's really just back here. Sorry.
Hay bale silt fence?
So, because you've got fill and everything, so this is the only area that you have wattles along that. The rest would be siltation and wattles.
Oh, siltation and Waddles?
Yep.
all the way up to Hartwell on this side, the
I would
the wetland side of it?
Because that's all fill.
But that'll be on the plan, I don't need to break that.
All right, so Waddles here, everything else.
Right.
Waddles backed with silt fence.
Correct.
And with construction fencing around the house corner,
Where your
or
hand is.
the orange stuff?
Yep.
Okay, so,
Orange construction, where you have your, kind of your greatest slope and closest to the 50-foot mark.
okay.
And the staking of the 50-foot NDA, that was just like a temporary staking during construction, that wasn't a, or was it meant to be a long-term staking? Posting.
That's what you just mentioned.
I just wanted,
Oh,
what you
yeah,
meant by staking.
I just meant during construction.
During construction, yeah.
It's memorialized
Yeah.
with
Just during construction,
identifying,
though.
yeah,
Yeah.
identifying the trees.
Right.
Well, the orange fencing's gonna
Yeah.
help with that too.
Okay,
So, okay, what was the other question? Okay, so these trees, just so we're not going back on the plan, these trees are staying, they're the
Yep.
ones you don't want to touch. We have a 4, 6, and 8 right here that are on the 50-foot no disturb. Do you want those to remain?
If possible.
Yeah, it's no disturb.
Well, it's right on
It's
it.
no disturb.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have to, well, yeah. Well, I mean, if you have to put the erosion control right where it is.
Put
I
it
mean,
in
if
front of
this
it.
one isn't too far, then why would these be too close?
Much
If
in there,
that's
I just
farther
don't want
away.
to come back again.
Yeah, nothing within the 50.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
all right, I may
You'll bring the new-
survey them more closely to see.
And you'll bring the new plan in for, continue to March 5th.
Can you make it March 5th? That's next week.
No.
Next week.
Yeah, we have back-to-back, because of Tom's work, right?
Yeah. That's right, it's
Okay.
March.
Thank you.
Oh, are you coming back March 5th?
Yeah.
Yes.
About 9 o'clock, so I'll be home drafting until 8.
I can
Bring the
help you.
plans in. You can help me too? All right.
Thanks.
Good luck tomorrow night.
time discussion, construction updates. Mass DEP 204-833, road utilities, and 204-838, 204-839, house includes discussion, the process of signing off on building department certificates of occupancy.
Good evening, Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting, here on with the fields for the Cooper Farm Estates project. So this the last report that we submitted to the commission kind of follows up with almost 2 weeks ago with the commission. You remember what the weather looked like back then, because it's been changing very rapidly. So the 2 weeks ago, we did have basically partially frozen conditions on the ground. So we had no frost in the top 2 to 3 inches, and then below that we had frost. So we had no infiltration of water. The ground being very soft, not excavation being very, very difficult because of the frost and those conditions. So last week we had that really warm spell. We got up into the 70s. So thankfully, the good thing about that was that we actually broke the frost on the site. So with that, we've seen a little bit of some settling in some spots there, which I mean the commission did observe that settling spot in the basin berm that we've removed the rock that was actually there and backfilled it with actual soil. So we feel it's a better patch for that area. So it was just settlement. It was not an actual erosion,
A breach.
or
It's
or
still on
seep
backfill, it's
or
still
seep
open
of the thing.
to where
Oil.
the rock was.
Where was that?
Pond 3.
frontage. Yeah, right in the, between ponds 3 and 4.
Okay.
in the berm.
That's still open.
It's the hole, it's the hole that you guys saw.
Pond- It was the
It's the-
berm,
yeah.
the
The
berm that
breakout
was, the
above
berm
the
that
pipe.
was leaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the
Yeah.
frost at that point.
Yeah, it was just basically
Still open if
frost.
someone wants to come observe it
Basically
tomorrow and
frost,
look at it.
yeah, basically frost and frost heaving basically of the berm there with the rock, which probably didn't help the situation there. So having the rock removed and we're gonna backfill with soil is gonna be a better situation there. So, so basically we walked through the site, last week and then, basically going through what the plans are for the next 3 months, basically walking through what the housing construction plans are, how the owners of those lots are managing some of the lots above which are not in the Conservation Commission jurisdiction area. We're working with them to make sure that they're staying in compliance with the general order conditions in the sense of erosion control and controlling their sediment. So the goals we set last week, basically, we had a long list of recommendations with basically a priority list. The priorities are to, first of all, get the basins down in the cleanest manner possible. So we have basins 3 and 4 being dewatered. Basin 4 is bone dry today. So our goal is, again, basically we were expecting rain at the end of the week. The basins will be bone dry by the end of the week to make sure that that's occurring. So those basins are being dewatered into the main field in the hay bale corral, which we've been using for quite a long time. Basin 1, which you remember down is by the cul-de-sac, small cul-de-sac there by lots 1 to 7. That basin, we're also dewatering into the main field. So we have a pump in the basin. We have hose running through the woods into the field, again with the wattle around it.
So previously, when we went out there after that rainstorm, that hose was not in the field.
No, it was not.
It was right next to.
It was right next to the stone wall.
And it was sending silt.
It was sending. Yeah. So there was. I did observe some channelization there. So that was. It was just a poor placement of the end of the hose. So we did. We had it when I was there. We moved it temporarily because we were still dewatering. So I moved it. We moved it into the areas where the actual stone wall is, because you have actual controlled vegetation there. So again, I mean, we want dewatering needs to be in a controlled area first when it leaves the hose, so that we check velocity, and then have it filter through some sort of sedimentation material, whether it's wattles, hay bales, silt fence, which is what we have in the field. And then we want it to flow over.
Can I ask one
a
question while
vegetated
we're
area.
talking about pumping? We've asked a couple times for pumping records.
Yep.
So every time something's turned on, we still haven't gotten any of them.
So the difficulty, we could make it's possible to make a chart of when we turn the pumps on. I mean, basically,
This is what's been asked at meetings that you haven't been at.
No, okay.
So, and in the field as well. So that's something that you're under cease and desist at this point. In the field, we've mentioned it numerous times and in these meetings as well, that it is part of record that every time a pump is turned on, the location and the time and the flow must be noted.
Okay.
We do have some records, but I haven't typed them up or made anything formal to share with the board yet.
It should be a logbook. So every pump should have a logbook. And that should be on site. So when anyone shows up at the trailer, let me see the logbook.
Yep.
Okay.
We can definitely
Logbook
we
is-
can definitely do that. So we understand.
So no pumping until the logbook has been brought to up to date. Okay?
Yep.
So let's be clear of that.
Understood. Yeah. We
How
don't.
many logbooks do you want?
Well, there's
3 pumps.
There's 3 pumps per
Well, there's
dealer.
there's
I'm
2
just trying
pumps.
to
One's
make
pumping
sure
from
it's
pond
clear
4 to
for
pond
everyone.
3.
There's 3 pumps.
So you want 3 books?
So we can definitely record. We can definitely record when those pumps are going. I mean, our policy before has basically been is if we can bring the basins down to increase capacity in the basins, we do that when we can. So that way we have as much capacity as possible for anything that could occur upgrading of those basins when it comes to
You're
storms.
developing historic data, however, so we need to know how often they have to be pumped.
Every day.
Right.
Daily for the
Because
last 7
they're
days.
full of silt. Because
so-
they're temporary basins.
Yeah, the basins. I mean, the only basin that still has some infiltration capacity is probably Basin 2. Otherwise, basins 1, 3, and 4 are all being used as temporary sediment basins with heavy silt accumulation. So therefore, that's why we have to pump them down. Is because they're not seeing the infiltration you would see when that silt is actually scraped out and cleaned. But they are capturing a significant amount of sediment. So with
No, 2, I'm sorry. 2 is the ones near
Lot
nuts.
8, 9,
Lot 9.
10.
9 and 10,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's the pond next to the cul-de-sac, not behind the cul-de-sac. If you think about that, it's next to it.
Okay.
There.
How's the
It's the high-
flocking coming?
It worked last week, starting, pond 3 was very clear, probably Thursday and Friday after the warmth. And the water coming out of it into the corral was, coming out of that pump was really clear.
And one's getting flocked as well?
Yep, it's got the log, and I also have granules that I put in it.
So
too.
who's ever monitoring the site daily, that's all supposed to be in the logbook of when you're flocking.
It's a continuous flock log. It lasts almost up to 3 months.
To properly flock, you're supposed to be circulating the water through the flock.
It does. It comes out of the
Okay, so every
flared
time I've
end.
been on, I haven't, it's not, so it has the water that flows over it.
Yes. It comes from the flared end coming into the pond.
Right,
It's
but-
right at the beginning of the pond.
Okay.
As the water enters the basin, it's flocked. It's flocked.
So-
It's not that we don't do anything except let the water keep coming through, and it's the flocking.
Okay, so maybe the placement needs to be moved then.
So it's.
So when was the last time you observed, you're overseeing the site,
Yeah,
correct?
so we see, I mean, last week I saw the flock logs in place where the entrance to the ponds are.
Okay.
So it's that the goal of flocculant, you cannot, the goal of flocking, again, is, as you said, is basically the goal is to have moving water go over the flocculant, and then the water has to go into a stilling area for it to settle down. And so you can't put a flock log in the middle of a pond, that doesn't do anything for it.
We were not suggesting that.
I know,
So
I know, I'm just making sure that the rest of the commission understands the way the flocculant works, just because it's sometimes.
We're the one that suggested it to you guys. So,
I know, but not everybody understands the science behind it, so I just wanted to make sure that it's clear. So with lots 1 to 4, we're working on, this week, we're gonna have them all, we're gonna have lots 3, 4, and 5 loamed in the back, basically, and also up in the front where we can, and then
are
they're
you
gonna
gonna
be
take the silt
hydroseeded
out of
intact.
3?
Pond 3?
So 3, correct me, is where, Amy, where the force main went through and no longer really resembles
Yeah, we're
a
meeting
basin?
with Patriot tomorrow to go over a plan of action for that. They weren't able to meet today, which we had previously planned for.
Okay.
Because they were originally the
So
constructors
if
of the
you-
ponds.
If we look at, we have some pictures of the ponds 4
So
and 3.
I would prefer not to have work done until we actually figure out how we're gonna clean up 3.
Pond 1 is behind lots.
I'm talking about basin 3, where it's,
Down at
where,
the very end of the cul-de-sac.
yeah, well, 3 and 4, and on the side of 3, that's kind of got all the
Do you guys
tremendous.
have a plan for
Yeah, it
you?
would be good to have a.
I did not, I left mine at my desk, my apologies. I have a small little.
Ponds 3 and 4 are adjacent to each other. Yeah.
Yep, and as you're looking down at 3, the left side
Yeah,
is kind of sloshed down
yeah,
and has a tremendous amount of silt in it that needs to be addressed
yep,
to pull out.
yep,
I feel like that is a top priority,
yep.
because that really needs to be fixed. Here's Amy.
Is your concern the capacity,
Excuse me.
or?
Well, we keep putting water in there, and
Yep.
So, I mean, in the sense of it, we're expecting to see sediment in there because they're temporary sediment basins. So, we can, I mean, I would be.
a tremendous amount of sediment in there.
There's probably a
I
foot
would
of
be,
sediment. As I was
yeah,
looking at it today, there's probably a
if
foot.
we can clean out some, we could. I mean, I would be hesitant to breach the sediment at the bottom of the basins, because then we could jeopardize the bottom of the basins more, or jeopardize their ability.
Well, there's a
in the future,
direct
so.
water flow coming down
That's 3.
into it. So I think,
And this is 4. The water more comes into 4, and we've been pumping it over to 3.
right, but
We
it's
can-
also just coming down the slopes as
we can-
well
we can
into
control-
it.
we can
So because
control
it
that
doesn't
area.
look like a basin anymore, it doesn't have a side slope.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like sloshes right
does-
down into it.
It's a very shallow slope on the inside of that basin, on that side. So you're not going to see the steep
Right,
slopes,
there's
because
not-
the way the
there's not a
grades
huge contour
feather
lines.
down at such a slight angle that you're not going to see a significant drop like you would see usually in a lot of basins, because of the way the grades are actually shooting in the back.
So you're saying if we keep it the way it is, there's enough capacity?
We think right now there is enough capacity. I mean, what we will do is.
It's only
we-
because they're pumping.
Because there's no,
But they're pumping
because the
in.
sediment, because it doesn't work until it's done.
So we just need a plan of action for
So-
getting them back to working.
So, I mean, our plan,
And that's why we were talking about flocking as well, so to help that settlement.
So we will look into, first of all, checking any erosion in that area that's coming down towards that spot to make sure that it doesn't continue to be
Well, you're
a
adding more,
sediment
so
area.
under
So-
current situation right now, there is flow of material going
Yeah.
into there.
Yeah.
So if
So we
you were
can-
out,
we can
you could
check
see
that.
that last week, you can see that this week, that's been there for quite a while. So what we're saying is stop adding more into it and start to control the sides.
Okay, so what we do, we can put measures to control this section for, until
We
we have.
want to know what
until
the
we have-
measures are. So no
We can
work.
put a temporary
So what we want to have after this
berm.
conversation is a list of things that you'd like to do. So, and then we know
We can
what
put a-
the
we can put a
stages
berm
are.
right there. We'll do a
We'll put,
berm right there.
we'll put a berm around the top corner of that basin so that no.
Just submit it in writing. So Basin 4, was that plugged?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a plug on it, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now
So
that
that's
other-
why we're pumping from basin 4 to basin 3.
That basin over there, whatever.
This is
no,
basin.
wait.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
That's basin
When
1.
I saw it, it was just pouring, like the water was just high velocity going
Right.
to the side and then right underneath, because it was
Yep.
frozen, all the,
Everything's frozen. It was
yeah,
frozen.
everything was frozen, so it had undercut the silt fence and the hay bale and just went right through into the water.
Mhm.
Those pictures.
Yep.
Yeah.
that I gave
So
you.
is that, what condition is that in right now?
It's not frozen anymore.
So-
And it's
but-
empty.
But it had created a hole right underneath.
And we
like, is that
addressed,
fixed?
so we addressed the silt fence all along this edge right here, all the way down to right here.
We were able to do that last week because we
Um,
actually had frost break
There-
on site. to
There
actually
was
do
a
it.
huge
Okay.
area where all the ground was frozen, there was no, it was just all frozen. And the pond, Basin 1 is not designed to capture all the water on the whole entire site in the condition that it's in right now.
The site was basically in a condition where it was almost like you had impervious surface
Right.
because of the frozen ground.
But one could have predicted that, so I would think you had so much open at the same time, and it was frozen like impervious surface. It was, it was begging to.
There is
something-
there is something to say for being prepared for long-term construction. And some sites take that into
Should have
consideration.
been
Some sites are
chunk by chunk.
some sites are permitted that way, and that's it's at the discretion of how the planning board and the commission conditions. the
Well, it
project
should
in
also be,
phases.
it should also be
So-
good general practices on a site like this.
I agree.
I mean,
So
I think
the engineers don't always think about that because they're not always on site during the construction. So
They should-
I've seen
they should think
some.
about retention ponds.
I've
and
seen
they-
engineers
that's-
do that, and some engineers don't do that.
I would think
and
most engineers would
I
think
sometimes
about
have to
that kind of
remind
thing
them.
before they get out and
Whoever
start
did the
digging.
SWIP should have thought about that.
They should have.
Yeah.
So let's talk, if you want to jump back to 1, let's talk about 1 a little bit and the storm that we just had on Sunday. So we've had numerous conversations and guarantees that at times when we know that there's rain coming, that we would put wattles across the road going down, which I believe is Vint. And so when I was out on Sunday, when we look at the general care of the property, and when we have, basically silt running down roads, and videos have been submitted to the conservation, that we're still overly impacting a lot of the catch basins, which ultimately is going into the larger basins. So unless we can actually step all the way back and basically control the site and control your contractors, because I understand you're not building the lots, but when a lot contributes to the road and the water runs down the road and then goes into basins, it's ultimately your responsibility. And so you have to understand that this site, so the next step for us, which is where I think it's already gone, is that DEP is now going to help take over this site. And so, because this is now out of our purview, I think we've been out on site a lot, we've made recommendations, but throughout this, I mean, it's basically general practices. This is not how you install proper basins in terms of when you have storms coming in. So when I'm out on site and I ask, you know,
What do you mean by install?
well, in terms of preventing, so this is not helping this drain.
No.
So this is something, and I think ultimately, to be fair to you guys, this is not within your purview. This is really street construction and how to maintain. So this is a full-time job.
So that's, I can understand, I understand your concerns, and that's why we're doing additional work on the site. Personally, our company, just because we understand the monitoring that needs to be increased to make sure that we have the correct measures in place. So we're working on that, and I wanted to walk through the commission what our plans are, because I mean,
Well, do you want to go through the letter that you submitted?
That's what I was hoping to do, and I was working on that. So
Okay.
again, we have loaming on lots 3, 4, and 5 down here at the end. I mean, so the main thing is we have it's the closest area to contributing to basin number 1 is in the erosion control, and that's why the commission issued enforcement orders on 4 and 5. So we're loaming those, and we're having them seeded and tacrified this week because we actually have weather that we can actually do that on. So we're having the first weather of the year to be able to actually accomplish those kind of stabilization measures on those lots. So our goal is basically by the end of this week that we're going to be able to have these lots all controlled up here. We have additional controls in place behind each of these houses. We have stone check dams and wattles going from the foundation of the house out to the edge of disturbance at each of the lots, 1, 2, 3, all across. Down here we have, again, check dams between the houses to, again, check flow and keep water there. We have Lot 8 now completely leveled and opened up so we can actually hold water in that area. We had stockpiles there with frozen ground. The frozen ground's gone. We got the stockpiles gone. And then we were able to actually open that up so we can actually basically take Lot 8 almost out of the picture in the sense of contributions to the road. Again, we're working with the contractors along the roads to add wattles and stone along the edge of the road because we're trying to avoid runoff coming off the disturbed area onto the road, which is going to just take sediment directly to the catch basins. because
Right,
it's
but
coming
one
off the
thing
roads.
that the commission has mentioned numerous times through all the meetings is that we've asked that the mounds of material should have been tackified or they should have been wrapped with wattles. Because what's happening is that those are still breaching and coming in. So that's where you get into the separate lots. So under one of the conditions, which any soil that has been there over 30 days,
Yep.
we can tell you to move it.
Yep.
And so I think we talked a little bit that the loam is going to move, but other things, any of those mounds, if they're not guaranteed to kind of be more contained, then I think you really do need to move all those.
Yeah, and we've instructed owners of lots, example lot 2, to move his piles, and that what controls he is required to otherwise. That's
But
what
we're
we-
talking
and-
all the way
and that's-
down,
and
like
that's- and that's
as
big
when you
because
get
we've
majority
now
of the
because
piles
all the
are right
piles
here.
all the piles on this area are now gone.
But
except
what
for
about the
on
piles
lot
that
2.
are near basin 3 and 4?
Basin 3 and 4, they're all up here, and the closest ones are loam, and they're all
But they're all
in
they're all
They were
contributing.
contributing.
Absolutely,
The day
they're
I
all
was out
contributing,
there, they
because
were
we were out
contributing.
there, you can see all the water runs right with them and takes it all with them. Your owner
Yeah.
was with us. So anything, so you're aware of the law, that any soil that contributes downstream
Yep.
is within our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So what we were hoping tonight, after this was submitted on the 16th, that we really would have had a concrete schedule of, this is how we're going to tighten up this site.
Well, I'd like to continue that discussion, if you'd allow
Okay.
me to. Thank you. So, so we have these lots here are being loamed and seeded, in that area there, having control here, making sure that we don't have any other contributing flow from the upper lots here. Lot 8 being opened up basically to control water here, making sure that the flow behind these lots here are being contained in this area and not directed down towards the erosion control by themselves. We're sacrificing lots 12 to 14 around here to the cross culvert.
From the edge of,
From
the
edge of
road.
edge of the road.
Limit of work. done
Limit
by
of
the
work
area.
down to the tail.
Can we stop for just one second? So sequentially, so Amy doesn't have to try and write down all your notes, you would like to go through this, which is the same as going through that. So what I would like to do is to go through what you have submitted.
Yeah, so I just talked about lots 1 to 4.
You need to,
You want to go in order on that list right
exactly.
there.
I
So
just
that
thought-
way we can make comments on
Yeah,
this.
I'm working sequentially on the lots, and that's the way I have most of this ready.
Okay, but let's go through the verbiage of what you've submitted, because
So
these-
the area
these-
behind lot 1 slopes towards the property line and is a relatively small area. GC recommends that this area kept pitched towards this area to prevent runoff and erosion going down toward lots 2 and 3. It's
It
basically a question of
It does.
how can we break up the watershed into smaller areas. So right now, lot 1 does grade this direction here. It's a relatively small area, so I was instructing the fields to make sure that that does not all of a sudden get graded, so it slopes down to the basin number 1. So again, trying to basically, if there's, I don't want to increase the issues in basin 1. Can we eliminate? Yes. So making sure that it doesn't get increased, that's one thing. So that was lot 1. So the areas of lots 2 and 3 all drain towards basin 1 with no checks in place. So GC recommends that we think about 2 temporary basins to be installed in basin 1 between lots 3 and 4 in front that would allow to fill and then overflow behind lot 4.
So this is the part, can you walk us through what that would look like?
So we have room right here
Copies.
between 3 and 4, right back in here, right in here.
Do you
So we
have,
have-
excuse me, do you have more copies of your?
I did not bring
Fiddle?
I did not bring extra copies with me. So I'm reading word for word what's basically here. So the
So basically, it says temporary basin 1. So the area behind lots 2 and 4 all drains towards basin 1 with no check dams. It's recommended that 2 temporary basins be installed. Temporary basin number 1 between lots 3 and 4 in front.
yeah.
So it's right in the front of the
It's
house.
right in the front of the house. Basically, we're trying to basically thread the utility lines and everything else that's going on behind the houses and everything else. So there's a spot up front that we can actually get a little bit of capacity in there.
Okay.
So it's basically, we're trying to basically, instead of having a swale or a swath of water that just goes straight down to basin 1, we're trying to basically, we bring it into something that it can settle out, and then it would go down and then eventually get down to here. So again, we can.
And
we
then,
can
so
hold-
it's going to go then behind and into lot 4,
Yep.
which is where we have this stone wall that goes down in the back. And then it says temporary basin number 2 would be located directly up gradient of basin 1 and overflow with a fabric line stone overflow onto the stabilized slope above basin 1. I personally would not want that, because basin 1 is already picking up all the road water. So I would like to try and see your lots 1, 2, 3 keep everything up gradient.
So the grading on the site wouldn't allow for that. I mean, we can direct it towards the stone wall, but you can't.
Because then it's a direct path
Right,
into the
that's a direct
wetlands.
path.
So
Yeah.
well, the stone wall it's going to be at least a filtered pathway towards.
No, it doesn't filter it.
Because
You
there's-
can see
Yeah,
the
there's a
base of it, it
huge
doesn't
channel, there's a
filter it.
channel down there.
Doesn't filter it, it still goes all the way down.
Are you talking about the channel between the grading of the berm and the woody area, or are you actually talking about the stone wall?
Talking about where, the stone wall where you guys ran the hose
Yeah,
down.
because
had the hose.
there is a channel between the basin grading and the undisturbed woody area, and then behind that is the stone wall. I know there's a channel there, and I agree that we shouldn't let water go down that area. But my question is you can't with the grades here do that. So I mean, again, we're trying to add capacity that was currently held by basin 1.
But basin 1 was not designed to do
Some of that
that.
also was if we weren't going to get loam down.
Yes. So I mean,
So-
these measures were written before. So I mean, we have the runoff here basically. That was going to be the best way to control the runoff without letting it loamed and hydroseeded and tachyfied would have been temporary basins. So I mean, that was the plan at the
I
time.
would like to loam everything and hydroseed it and tachify everything to get it to the proposed grade that's on the plan. From Basin 1 up to the edge of, right up just behind Lot 3. Front yards, backyards, basin, Lot 5, front and backyard, and Lot 6 backyard and front yard as well. And loam everything up and get it hydro seeded.
So that would go on your schedule of what you would do, that you submit tomorrow, of
Yep.
what your proposal is for,
I
on
have
this,
some-
on the site,
Yeah.
you're gonna prioritize what's most important.
Yeah.
If you're meeting with Patriot tomorrow, so
Yes.
this would be, okay?
Yeah.
You have this, and now what happens now, because we're gonna be in touch with DEP, now you're gonna have to follow strict regulations in terms of timing. So we're gonna say, okay, let's say you have 72 hours, or you have X, but now you have to actually perform based on lack of performance. So at the end of the night, when you guys meet and you come up with like what your strategy is, you have to come up with a sequence of what's most important. So that's lots 1 through 4.
I would say it's lot,
No, I'm talking on his notes.
Yeah.
We're just
We're
working,
going
we're just
through
working
this.
through, we're getting there.
yeah.
So, all right, moving on to lots 5 and 6. So, so we have lot 5. Lot 5 is a pretty small area in the back there. I mean, again, we're going to have that loamed and hydroseeded by the end of the week. And all the erosion control has been repaired. Same thing with lot 6. We do have additional controls in there right now with a mulch, with more mulch berm in the back as well. That's currently there, but that will be. We'll be keeping some of the mulch in that area with the loaming and the seeding, hydro seeding in the back there. So that's basically cutting off lots 6, 5, 4, and 3. Basically any silty erosion that you're going to see during storms because they're going to be loamed. Moving up to lots 7 to 11. So lot 7, we'll be
loamed as
we'll be loading the front of lot 7 as soon as
Okay, because
possible.
here it's saying, in addition, the area of Lot 8 should be as much as possible bermed with a temporary basin in the center to retain runoff from Lot 8 and the sides of Lot 7 and 9.
So I removed the pile of dirt that was there, and prior to digging a cellar hole, we can use that as a temporary basin from any water from the front of Lot 9 coming down that way. Any water that's behind Lot 9, 10, and partially in Lot 8 is going into Basin 2 now with a swale going in there now.
Right now, most of lot 8 goes to the road. So our goal is to cut that off basically by, we got rid of the pile, and now we can actually berm and grade lot 8 to basically check almost all the flow on lot 8 from going to the road, and actually basically either retain it on, it'll basically be retained on lot 8 itself. And then it'll also catch edges of lot 7 and lot 9 as well. So again, basically taking that kind of lot area and basically saying that lot area is now controlled on that lot itself, and therefore is not going to be a contributing factor to Basin 1. So again, that's a big area that's going towards that area. So, and then
So,
lots.
just as one thing, we're going to wait till Amy comes back, because she takes our notes. So what's presented, a lot of this is not valid anymore because of new weather conditions.
New weather conditions,
So-
exactly.
Some of it is, like, say...
Some of it might pertain, yep.
Like the cross culverts, I addressed the cross culverts, I put stake hay bales in, we put...
But
new
we're
riprap
not going to
in.
be doing some of these measures, so we have to state that, okay, so we're not going to put in these basins.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, right.
Okay,
And
so
the-
let's
the
carry-
basin- The basins that, between lot 3 and 4,
Right, but
that was
I'm just saying, this is what's submitted, so
Yeah.
we're
And that
trying to
was-
make
yeah,
sure that
was
this is
submitted
not a
prior
call to
to
action.
The actual weather
Right.
changing and, me be able to screen 200 yards of loam today.
Right, so let's go to lots
So
11 through
lots,
14.
9, 11, 10, and 11. So basically, those all, basically, the goal is to basically capture anything that's going towards the road. If we can pull it towards Basin 2, that's what it's doing now, and that's what we're going to make sure that it stays there. And then also the runoff from lot, I believe it's a lot 11. There's that house there. Also making sure that we have a swale that kind of keeps the water from sending it directly to the erosion control. If there's any significant runoff,
So
we don't
does
want.
11 have soil on it?
It has some soil on it.
In the back.
And it also has that temporary basin that's working down below.
There's a small,
behind the,
yeah, we cleaned that depression out. It filled up slightly, so we
The loam
cleaned it
goes
out.
right over to lot, just between, I don't know, somewhere
Yeah,
in
between
between lots 11 and 12.
So that's lots 7 to 11. So 11 to 12, 11 to 14 are so I guess it's more like starting with 12 now. 12 to 14. We're
Even
previous
15.
even 15. We're loamed or almost completely loamed, and we're touching that up and then hydroseeding and tackifying that whole section.
That's getting done Thursday.
Is that just the area of the utility, or is that?
No, the
Whole-
entire lot.
All the way up to the edge, well, not the edge, but to essentially the sidewalk.
So Jensen Builders owns 14
Yeah.
and
We're-
GNS
we're
owns
ta-
9 and 10, so they're obviously fine with you putting down loam and.
Well, no, you're not starting at 9 and 10.
9 and 10 are separate. That's all controlled going into Basin 2.
Okay.
11 has a temporary basin down below it. 12, all the way around to
12 to 15.
15.
15
15 really.
have loam on it right now, and it's going to get tackified.
So that's from the edge. That's working.
So you can do lot 14 even though you don't own it. I mean, you're working with
Yes.
Jensen Builders
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, it's already, I loamed it, spread loam on it the other day. It just, was a little bit wet, but he's coming Thursday to
So I guess,
tackify it.
Just because we don't own a lot doesn't mean we're not working to try to keep that lot
That's
stabilized
why I just
and
wanted to
controlled.
double, yeah.
Yep.
so but the question is, as you transition from the loam to the street, is where we have a disconnect, that we need to make sure that the loam that still somehow washes from the lots into the street, down the road into these, so that's what you have to
The majority of the
real.
runoff coming off anywhere is essentially between the road and the loam, so it's mostly the silty material. So we're meeting with Patriot, and our top priority is to berm, sidewalk, and do everything from at least this half to that.
Right.
That's their priority
Okay.
to do.
Because when you go sidewalk, if this is a lot, and then you've got sidewalk and here's the road, if you can go ahead,
So it's
because
curbing,
curbing,
sidewalk.
but curbing's probably not going in now, though.
It's gonna go,
We're gonna-
the very first thing they're gonna do
Okay.
this year.
But in the meantime,
Yep.
because we're going into spring, if you have your sidewalk, you can throw crushed rock there,
Yeah, we
Yep.
have
so that
that.
it's gonna keep it from
Yeah.
going down.
So from right here down to here, and then from even right here down all the way around past lot 3, we put
A mound of
crushed
crushed
rock
It's
with,
similar to what we had to do on Constitution, how it,
Yeah.
no matter how you try and keep it tight, it would still always run down, but it ran in a channel.
and so I put crushed stone here Friday, all the way down and all along lots 2 to all the way through 4, with crushed stone and wattle underneath it on lot 3, so any water came off that way. It has the driveway got done on lot 3, and all the stone on the whole entire part, edge of road got put in. Do you have a picture of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, until curbing, sidewalk, and grass going, it's gonna be,
But, so that's the area that you did that in, if you just press play on that?
that's at the bottom of the cul-de-sac.
Right, but that's what happens, it came from 2 and 3.
It
But
came
that-
from everywhere.
This is what we're talking about, though.
And until.
So sometimes those measures aren't enough. Like, you have to think, okay, what's really gonna happen during these storms, which is like those.
Just,
So
okay, I'm sorry. Just along with this, we had all these cleaned, right? And no, but I'm just saying, there was very minimal silt in them. Like, it wasn't built up at all inside the basin, so.
Because it's flushing all the way through it. So that that can still go through and go around as well.
Through
So
the
not
silt sack?
Not all, you can see where it's bypassing those.
Oh, yeah, no. But that's why those hay bales are on that side of the basins. So, like,
Yeah, you're missing all of this. All of this is all supposed to be cleaned. Everything's supposed to be cleaned going in. So this is not a proper installation.
That's the uphill side, so I think you got the
I
uphill
I
side
would say
that's also coming
if it
around the
was a
side.
site that was finished and it was going in, yes.
We
But
would,
it's-
we wouldn't be here if that site was finished.
No,
I think you just have to be, I mean, we're doing our best to keep things as clean as possible. I mean, we will say, I mean, it's not possible to get clean water perfectly that's on the pavement, perfectly clean in the catch basins, because it will pick up some sediment. The question is how much sediment can we retain where it is and keep it in the spaces? That's our goal, because we know it's not possible to have, in the next storm, have perfectly clean water running down that road. Because that's what water does. Water picks up sediment wherever it finds it, whether it's on
When
a
were
clean
you
road.
out on the site last?
Last week. So I'm going Thursday. I'm going out again.
Okay, so
on
you
Wednesday.
haven't been out on site since this?
Since that report?
No, that was the week
No,
before.
this is the week before. So I was out last Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
So I saw
Thursday afternoon, yeah, you moved.
Yeah, I was out. Yeah, we walked the whole line and everything else. So
So you weren't out Friday or Saturday?
I wasn't out Friday or Saturday, no.
So under your last comment, additional site review, GC will inspect the site 24 hours prior to the next storm that forecasts more than .5 of rain to confirm what measures were able to be implemented and provide recommendation on which measures should be prioritized.
We did do that. I have we didn't submit the prioritized list to the one you.
No,
that you gave
we
me.
had
This last storm, no
On-
water left basin 1 over and out. Nothing left basin 2, nothing left basin. Everything got pumped up to this area right here.
So we had no uncontrolled discharges. We had no discharges from this last storm, which is the main goal. If we can avoid discharges during a storm, that's the goal, because that allows for more treatment of that water in the basins itself. So the last major storm was 2 weekends ago. So that's the progress. So there's a cross culvert
I want to
here.
go on record that statement is not accurate.
We had a major
Yeah,
storm
well-
this
Yeah.
weekend, this past
That's-
weekend.
we had-
After
yeah,
a
and
very
that's
long-
why-
Are you
and
saying
that's why
that water
we-
came out of basin 1 this weekend?
No, what, we were there when we met, because Amy and I were on site,
Yeah.
which gave you the opportunity to mitigate, to go ahead and start pumping and do other things, because we happened to be on site and met with you.
But they had been pumping all week. They had been working at it all week. It wasn't just because you
On
showed
basin
up.
1.
They hadn't been pumping basin 1
Was there
Well,
a
basin 1 was going down the side swale.
this past week.
When we were out there Thursday, it was
And
sucked
then
dry.
You turned the pump off.
And then I put,
Matt did,
and
yeah.
then I
Yeah.
put then Thursday afternoon or Friday, I put the hose out to that field.
Right after we talked, I told you we had the 300 feet of new hose.
Right.
That next day, we put the corral out in the field and put it where it was
Right.
directed to go.
So you didn't have impacts because we were out on site, you weren't out on site, and we made the recommendations of what to do. So my point is,
When did you make those recommendations? Just so I
so
understand.
on
Thursday.
Thursday
It was Thursday
afternoon,
afternoon. You were there
when-
Thursday morning, Mark.
Yep.
Yep.
So I had made those the
Right.
same recommendations prior
We
to.
had bought the hose
I
on
already had-
Wednesday.
Yeah.
It was.
We had
but
communicated.
you have to communicate that to us, because you wouldn't have been able
I
to
did
do
email.
that.
I did email.
That was in there somewhere, and it was in there, an email.
It
or-
wasn't in. It's not in the
Like that
report.
little separate
I just
report.
emailed. I emailed
10:30 that
Amy.
he emailed
I
me.
just emailed Amy because Amy said I need something by the first thing Monday morning, or I can't send it out to the commission. So I said,
Right.
"There's no way I can do that, but I
So-
will let you know that I was out on site." So I emailed Amy after I walked
That's
the
when I went
site.
back and forth a little bit about, can you get the hay bale corral out of the 50 or 100 foot?
And that's when we walked through and we talked about how the silt sacks were not properly installed and some of the catch basins were not properly being managed as well. So that's when he called you on the
We
phone.
cleaned those,
Yeah.
we cleaned that silt sack out, Sarah.
There was 2 I
We
cleaned
did-
out today.
We did.
One Friday and one today. This one right here was, that was
As an
on-
engineer, that's what I'm saying, is it's your you're supposed to be doing that. However, it's the engineer that's supposed to tell you all these things that are
And he
not
did.
working.
So 10:10 on Thursday, he had already come out and made this. We asked him to prioritize, and he made a prioritized list. So I think it was bad timing that you hadn't seen it before you came out, hadn't seen the list. But we, we're working on the priorities that he had given us. We asked you, and you went back
So,
through.
and the main thing is, so we understand that the main question, again, was there a discharge of stormwater into the wetlands this past weekend?
We did not walk over to the right. I was on site on Sunday.
Okay.
And there was water everywhere.
Leaving the site?
There's water everywhere because it was raining.
Leaving the site?
I didn't go down to 3 and 4.
Okay, so I
met
would like to
with
say,
your-
I would just like to make clear, during a storm, on a site that has disturbed areas, you will see silty water puddle in areas and flow in certain areas. That's expected, and and that is just something that you would expect no matter where you are. If you have a garden and it
So
rains,
you definitely have
it gets muddy.
discharge behind 4, because it's going around 4 at the moment. So outside, so to the right. So where we walked on Friday, you could see where
Over
the
here.
water was coming around.
When we
around
followed the hose.
No.
No, 4 at the other end.
4.
Right
The
down
far
here?
right end, where we walked over and I
Where the loom
showed
piles
you
are.
where, exactly. So that is a false statement to say there is not. You have an open area breach that hasn't even been addressed yet.
There's a loom pile here.
It's getting
right
into the
here.
wetlands.
There's a couple
Absolutely.
tire tractors here. There is a area down here that we have stone and stump grinding, Michael. You made a trough
Yep.
that goes into here.
Yep.
And I actually said that.
It goes right, and it goes to this, and then it goes right over to here though, when it fills up.
It would pitch
I
that
think
way.
what Sarah's saying is
She said-
she believes it's going around through this wall over here on the side.
Oh, it is, definitely.
All right. So I don't, from what I've seen on site, I wouldn't, it'd be hard for me to understand that it would actually do that, but we will look at that very closely. So I want to keep focusing on working down this list because we're getting disjointed on the site as a whole. So
The site
the
was
cross
disjointed.
culvert here, going across the culvert here, we added more riprap on the bottom, basically because our goal is to keep any water that's on site clean as possible and get it off site to the edge of site as soon as possible. So the cross culvert, we had hay bales put around the end there. We cleaned around the flanges as well, basically to remove any sediment in those areas, basically to keep the water that gets in there clean as possible down to the edge there. And then around those edges are going to be lumped.
There's also silt fence, there's also water and silt fence below that, behind that picture you just showed her.
I'm talking about silt that still hasn't been cleaned up yet.
Oh, so they worked on it again all day today. We hired a new laborer to go along with the other one that we had, and so I showed Mark a little while ago, but we had guys in there today cleaning up,
And that,
with their shovels and.
right, that's not proper.
Well,
Until there's
I
loam,
can't,
curbing, sidewalks, grass, there's gonna be dirt on the road.
so,
But you have to understand, it's your responsibility. And
I
so
could-
that's what,
we sweep it
but
every
you
day.
have to pack them as well. So you have to be able to surround them. You can't
The
throw,
site,
you
the site
can't,
is not even 9 months old.
it,
Not even 9 months old.
that, the wetlands doesn't care how old it is.
It goes back to proper practices
So
on the site. That's the bottom line of this whole thing.
that's what we're working towards. And we understand that there's been issues on site, and we understand that not everything is done perfectly. And that's what we're working towards. So we have this area being loamed and tackified. These lots have already been loamed, at least the lower sections here. There is some sections up here that haven't been.
What number are you referring
loamed.
to?
I'm now on,
No, when you were just sweeping your fingers over what lots are those?
25, 24, and 23
yeah,
were
20
loaned
yeah,
and
it's-
seeded last year.
Yep, 25 to 23 right there. So, and then we also do have loam on 21 and
All those
22.
are- yeah, all
are-
those
are
are-
also
So, and your
already-
recommendation for that section is a hay bale check dam should be added to the cross culvert inlet area and the stone cleaned of sediment.
Yep, and that
Done.
was done.
So
And then
again, our goal
On the
is.
outlet side, we put additional stone.
Yep, and then
all
we're,
the way
and then
down
we're
to
loaming
that.
both sides. So that the idea is if it is clean water, it gets into the culvert, we keep it clean to the edge of the silt fits line, so that way it can weep through and doesn't pick up any more sediment. Again, clean water, if we have clean water, our goal is to get it to the edge of the site as quickly as possible so we can get rid of it, because the longer water is on site, the more likely it is to pick up sediment. So if we can capture clean water anywhere on site and get it off site, that's our goal. So that was the purpose of those measures there. So working, we're gonna jump across the street, so lots 15, going down to 17. So basically we have these areas are kind of all directed towards the field right now. So our goal is to basically capture any sediment we can along the edge of the lots, and then, if anything, protect this top of the wetlands, which is a critical zone, here, and then allow any infiltration in the field itself in this area here
And
and
that's what
treatment. And that's what this hedge is also doing right here. So that's lots 15, 16, and 17. So lots 18 and 20, those all go down to the basin number 3, and we're working to basically mitigate water runoff that comes off that's above the lots from washing all the way down. Again, just
That's
basically
what we spoke of, that that's.
eliminating
Right, so it-
eliminating runoff.
But can those mounds be moved?
I can move these mounds right here, all right here, I have to move these mounds. And they can be either moved up to this area right here where this extra loam is.
Where the screener was, or is?
I think
Our
our
screener is, I screened,
Well, that pile's almost
Let-
gone, it's all
Yeah,
screened.
can we move up to that area? Do you have any capacity to move
any
of
loam
those?
piles we wouldn't want to move
I'm
away.
moving this loam pile tomorrow because it's already, the majority is screened. The worst two are on lots 20
Right.
and 16 and this one right here.
Because they're really a direct impact on
Discharge.
3 and 4.
Yep.
So if you're not going to move them right away, you really have to stabilize them
Well, if they can't be moved, then I have tackifier coming. It's
and wrap them.
Or we
It's-
can, yeah,
it's
or we
three
can
acres.
Wrap the base.
erosion control around the lower half moon.
The mulch was a great idea. It didn't work. The
So
mulch does not work.
it helps. Doesn't work
okay. So
perfectly.
if I
Right, but
can't,
under an order of conditions, so you had 30 days, and so after 30 days, we can have you move those piles.
Yeah.
So what we're asking,
all right.
Yeah,
I'll,
which is what we've mentioned before,
Yeah,
is that
I'll
address
move
the
that pile
piles.
up to this area up here, and either we tackify it, or I mean, nothing. I mean, the pile of loam.
Yeah, you don't have to. So it only has to get stabilized if you're leaving it, but if you move it, I think it's fine.
What's going to stay in a pile up here?
Yeah, but it's out of a,
It's out of there.
well, I don't think it's gonna impact anything if you move it up the hill.
So
Oh,
Probably.
It's not gonna run off into the road.
I take that back. I take that back.
This pile is right there.
what you would do is what I would do is I would pile the soil and build a small berm around it, so that way the swale behind the berm can fill up with sediment off the pile, and then
But-
you just go in and scrape it out, and you can
But that, I wanna be clear, that's not an option for where it's located right now.
Understood. So I mean, we do want. I mean, if some of these, some of these piles, we could leave the piles if we have erosion control on the backs, right? And then we could also use those as part of a temporary basin, which is our plan for this area of the site if as we go along. Because we want, again, we're trying to alleviate the capacity that these basins are being stressed to. So we can't just say, oh, if we move all the piles over here, our problems are solved. They're not. Because we still are trying to work on the capacity side, because if we
So
can, if we
where
can
in
gain
your notes
capacity-
are you asking for another basin?
So, so we do, so if you talk about, the lots 17 to 24.
On the over 55.
Over 55, lot 75, so GC recommends a half-moon burn, which has been constructed. Basically, we have a berm that goes around the bottom half of this thing that is 3 feet high, it's a deep berm, and then we have a stone check dam in the middle for a spillway point, basically. So that
My
allows.
question, did that get fabric lined?
Yes.
I don't see it.
Yep.
So,
all over all the stone is fabric underneath it.
So the goal basically was say, okay, if we can detain water here during storms, let's do it, because that way it breaks that all that water is no longer going to basin 3 and 4. It's now being held up here.
Yeah, but
during
that's
storms.
where we put it down the drain in order to give you more capacity the other day.
It went from, it goes behind there, and then it goes out into right behind lots 15, and goes into the catch basin, but then it goes into basin 4. So basin 4 then gets pumped to basin 3. I mean,
but it
No,
holds.
you're
it
talking
holds-
about where we had the third pump on the road the
Yes.
other day.
Yep.
So that doesn't offer much capacity.
It does.
It,
some.
It helps.
It slows
yes,
down.
it
So
slows
with our
capacity.
recommendation, we had
holds,
him-
it holds some water. It detains sediment,
Mm-hmm.
and those are two major measures that we're trying to provide on the site. So I know it's not a perfect finally built sediment infiltration basin up here. I know that, and that wasn't our goal. Was basically to provide capture of sediment, capture of runoff, and control it. So we definitely had sediment being contained and controlled, and also capacity.
Prior
Both
to
of
last
which are
week,
benefits.
the ground was frozen there anyway. It literally was, this area right here was all frozen anyway. It's not frozen now, it's dry today. There's no standing water in this whole area up here besides right at the bottom part of it.
In the past 7 days, we've seen a radical ability to change what we can do on the site because of the weather conditions alone, and that's what we're working towards as we go along. So that's the inside of that over 55 there. So the top of lots 1 to 6 on the over 55, basically, if we can either loam them or we run water along the top of the pavement, basically. So just you can see you consider the pavement almost the edge of a wetland or the edge of your limit of work. You run your water around the edge, basically to check any sediment coming off the disturbed areas onto the pavement around the top section here. And then lot 7, basically here down to here, basically we can now actually basically keep the water on these lots off the road. If we can, and then send it down this way here, where we can put a temporary basin down here, which is.
It's right where a big pile of dirt is that I'd have to move.
You'd have to show us where that's gonna be before that's,
It's-
that can be.
It's basically taking the piles where the piles, basically moving some of the center piles and then opening up the area.
So, but what we're saying is you're gonna have to tell us where it's gonna be on site, put a stake there or something, and then because that's very close to
Well, we-
resource area, and then Amy can come out.
It's going to be more than 150 feet from a resource area. We'll give you a sketch tomorrow, but we can't. And if you want, we can throw a stake out there. But we're just thinking about. We're just thinking about timing of things too, in the sense of how fast we can do stuff. So, but we can do whatever you want over there. If you think it's necessary, we'll do that, and we'll take the time to do that.
And just
if that's necessary. My main concern in this area is making sure, as long as we have controls that are controlling runoff going this direction towards the resource area and the buffer zone.
Right,
which
over
we
on the
can do.
right side, which is where we walked, is the area that has to be.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna
Make a list of stuff that we can do for this week.
That's
Well, we have our list.
That's
yeah.
what we're gonna
And
we're
what
gonna
I
take.
can accomplish this week.
Yeah, that's what we'll put together.
Mike, one thing, so that's been the cleanest road out there.
Yeah.
And so now that we're moving all this material, that's gonna be a really dirty road. So we now have to figure out how are we going to keep that road clean.
The road gets swept on a daily basis.
Okay, but we
with
saw
with
how.
a road sweeper.
Right, but it's not,
So
it's not a
if you
perfect
Go
road.
out there
So-
today and you look at the road today.
Mhm.
I mean, if that road isn't clean enough, I don't know what's clean. today.
The road is a base coat, so therefore the spaces between your asphalt are a little bigger. It's not a smooth coat, so therefore it's harder to actually get that clean unless you actually pressure washed it. So where the road sweeper gets the majority of the sediment off, our goal is to keep as much sediment off the road as possible, but we're not going to see clean water get into those silt sacks. But our goal is to keep it as clean as
But that's
possible.
the area that is always underwater. So those catch basins, those manholes are the ones that are always underwater, where you can just see the little bits of the yellow.
Which ones?
So down in that
On
corner.
the corner, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my concern is that if we're adding a lot of dirt onto that road, and that's the area that consistently floods, covers the whole road, then we have to be careful with that,
Well, what we can do is we can route the trucks around the road of
Around.
the lower
to
cul-de-sac.
come up.
Yeah.
We can go up the high
Right.
side over to there. So
Right.
there is a stone, so I put stone off the edge of the road to the loam pile. So, even up here, we put, I put 2 truckloads of stone, so anybody parks there. Every single contractor put stone in their driveway after you said you need to put stone in the driveway, so we did that. I think if you go out there, it's a, I don't know, it's a different site it's a different site than it was a day ago. I spent all day doing it, so.
So those are the general lot-specific kind of things that we had put together with revisions since then because of my walk out there and my priority list, which again is basically just refining what this list covers in its goals and its the way it's handled. So additionally, I mean, the main thing with the roadways is basically keeping the roads swept, which they've been doing, and then using hay bale, stone, wattle, half-moon check dams along the edge of the road at regular intervals to basically capture sediment along the road. Again, if we can capture sediment up here, that's the goal, so that way it can be captured and removed after storms, so that the sediment doesn't wash all the way down. Because that's, again, I mean, when you see a new road, it's got a gutter line, and any sediment just keeps going down the gutter line because there's no check dam. So the idea is to check it at intervals with the hay bales, wattles, or stone, to basically capture some of the sediment as it goes down. I mean, it's not going to capture every piece of fine silt, and it's not going to perfectly clean the water, but it's checking it along the road.
Cease and desist for the impact to the wetlands. That was voted on, because they weren't here. One thing, because we had to ratify the 3 cease and desist, which I just remembered, so it's 833. So on that, which encompasses the road, there were 2 additional items. Can you read what that motion was, Amy?
10 pages.
It was the first.
It's the
first
road
thing from,
discovery. Is it?
Just with the wetlands.
You call it a cease and desist, but isn't it an enforcement order?
Enforcement order, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong place.
It was right at the very beginning.
Yeah. No, because it was to ratify the 3 executive orders and add to 204-833 that discovery be provided for the impact to wetlands and waterways.
So basic. So basically, the commission, under that enforcement, is now having you do a wetlands impact and was that waterways analysis?
Wetlands and waterways, yeah.
Based on the breaches and what's happened. So that's part of the to-do list.
But that was to do with the
Just the
Shovel
road,
Brook,
yep.
The Shovel Brook, basically, wasn't it?
And it didn't involve lots, the house 4 and 5. So but Amy can send you an email for that.
Yeah, I'd like to see Amy describe that, please, because I'm a little, that's a vague description. So I want to make sure that we're clear on what exactly you're asking for us to do.
Yep.
It would basically be if there's been any alterations to the wetlands in there, and the water quality based on the sediment that's been getting in there.
Okay.
You said that they started to clean up the other 30%. Do you want to address that? 'Cause
So,
that
so
wasn't-
down here, so we have, I mean, again, we've already completed anything that was below the stone wall, which is basically just above the wetland line, so that was the critical zone right there. The wattle is still in place. Along that edge, basically, just if there's any movement of anything that's temporary, that's small, that moves, if it moves, it'll get checked by the water. When we remove the water, we'll be removing anything that might have been missed, or you might not be able to remove until it gets to a water where it actually.
So how much more has removed? Because Amy,
That's what we
Matt,
removed.
and I
That's what we
were
removed
there, and
today.
you can see where we kicked a boot. And you can see how much is in there.
I've seen it.
I know we did it now.
So that's what we removed today,
That pile
right there. That came out today.
Okay, so Amy, if she gets a chance, can go out and look at that this week.
We are slowly working, and we have a protocol we're working on. Basically, we're working on going from right to left as you go along, because again, our goal is to.
Kicked right over here.
Yeah. Yep.
So this has all been redone. They did all this today.
Yeah.
So there was
So then they just have to go
They have to go.
further down to the right.
Yes.
Yeah, so this area where the trees were that you and Amy kicked, that's all we have left out there.
There's so
It's very small.
So
it's
like another
basically
10%?
it's basically, I mean, the woods
Probably have
the woods
2 more
there
days, 3 more
yeah,
days.
the woods
It's
there
perfect weather for
yeah,
it.
the woods there are there's high bush blueberry there, and there's lots of buckthorn, and there's honeysuckle.
That's the rock that
We
was
only have the one
causing that
spot that
pocket
Amy's
that
there
you
over.
guys.
So we're working, and our goal is to work in a sequential route from this direction over, because basically we know that our goal is, as we clean this area here, if there's anything that comes down this way, if there's anything, our goal is we don't want any water going over that sediment that's currently in the buffer zone.
There was probably
because that
6 or 8 inches
that will
of sediment
that will
today that
take
we
it farther.
pick.
So again, we're working in a sequential like right to left this direction here when you're looking towards the wetland, because that's the best way to remove it in a clean manner, to make sure we sweep it all in one direction there. We also provide a cleaner pathway for any water that does go towards the wetland in that area, and we basically slowly narrow our area down, so that way we can control this area better than if it's just a wide swath and we just work our way up. So that's why we're going basically this way along the route. So instead of working our way, we've cleaned up to the stone wall. That's a good spot to hold in check. And then we go this direction here, and that way any flow that comes through here at all, any runoff, any rainfall, it stays clean and has a clean route down to the wetland versus running over a small strip of sediment that we haven't actually got down here or up top. So that's how we're working.
So is that what you're talking about with the wetlands impact, is that area right there?
No, they're actually asking us to check the water quality of the river.
So when I, so
The stream
So
that runs back
every
here,
area
there's
where-
a
when I,
lot of
when,
observations.
when I was out there the storm before last, I walked down to the stream, and there was definitely silt getting down into that open water.
Oh, yeah, I have pictures.
Absolutely silt getting into, and that silt was moving. Were you saying you control it so that it doesn't move?
Yeah.
But when it get down to open water,
Oh, yes.
it moves.
I understand that. I'm not
So-
surprised. That's, I mean, again, it's with erosion control, you wanna check velocity and prevent it from going into rivulets, streams, and those.
Well, it made it.
It was into the
It
stream.
made it. It made the stream.
I understand.
It's
I've
been
seen-
protected. It
I've-
made the stream.
I've seen the pictures.
Okay.
I've seen the pictures, so.
Son of a.
Whoa! Of course.
See, there's the stream right there.
There we go.
We do a demonstration.
I'm gonna be able to get lots 6 through 3 loam this week. I have Patriot exploring if they can get the sediment out of ponds 3 and 4 this week. And I can get this area right here, either the lump piles moved or leveled out and tackified, along with these areas right here tackified.
Have you been watching?
I would say
the
that if
weather
you can't
report?
get to those in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Yes, that's our goal.
Got to-
We're pushing hard
Well,
to, we're pushing hard to get everything
waddle
done
around.
by the end of the week.
That
Rain.
was,
Rain.
that was the first storm.
There's some rain, yeah, we're not.
20%
yeah,
chance of rain Thursday, 40% chance of rain Saturday. And then it's gonna get, 40s next week.
The forecast did go, the amount we're supposed to get
Yeah.
has been reduced.
There's still,
We are supposed to get
it's
rain
still
3
very,
days in a
it's still
Lot of
very
wind.
wide, it's still a wide range of forecasting that we're seeing. So we know there's a storm coming. Our goal right now is to use the weather we have to get everything done we can get done.
I mean,
And then
good you got a lot
we're gonna
screened
be,
today.
we're gonna be looking again, yep. Yeah, so we've got a lot screened, so we can start placing it
I
very
got someone's
rapidly.
gonna help me spread the loam, rock hound it, spread it out. I have another company that's gonna
Come in to do the spraying.
do the spraying,
They're
and
coming Thursday.
they're gonna come
We've already had
Thursday.
to reschedule them twice just because of wet,
So that's,
With
But you'll
the
know by
frost,
then, so if on
with the
Thursday
frost
you
being
haven't
gone, the
moved
amount
those
of, the
mounds,
amount
they get
of
sprayed.
water runoff is reduced. I mean, last year, if we didn't have a 2-inch rainstorm, the water coming off the property was controlled all through the whole summer. With the silt being in these ponds, it's a different story now. But those still, it's still our site, Matt and I's site, but our contractor's responsible to maintain the ponds and build the ponds, finish the ponds. They never got to them.
They can get at them now.
They ran into time delays putting the forced main in last year, it's still,
It's a construction project, you always have delays. It's
right.
the nature of
It's,
it,
but
unfortunately.
for what I can
Right, but
control,
this
I
is rare
can do
to
this
have.
week.
So much of the site being open is why we're having so many challenges right now. So that's
And
why
I
we're.
understand having a site that's, this large being open, but other than not having the ability to move 20,000 yards from one side of the site to the other side of the site.
I mean,
and have-
what's past is past. We understand that, and we understand that and our goal is to basically rectify, to the best of our ability, the current site conditions that we have. We can't. We understand that looking back is 20/20 vision. So we're again
But to be fair to the wetlands, this is probably the third or the fourth time that we've been retroactive kind of looking back at what we've done wrong. So
Well,
we want to get to the point where we're not constantly reactionary.
We understand. That's what
And
we're
so we
working
look forward
towards.
to your list tomorrow of what your sequence, your
Yes.
goal is for the next 72 hours through
Yep.
the rest of the week.
Through Friday.
Yep, through Friday.
I mean, I have a goal, I can accomplish my goal,
We'll
but.
type it out and submit it.
And we'll
Yeah,
we'll
we can.
submit it.
Yeah,
And
we'll
I
be
can
we'll be
only-
working through the whole week. I mean, and we'll be prioritizing the measures that need to be put in before any rain. And if there is some
How much
rain,
frost is left
there's
in
still
the
work
ground?
we can do.
There's none.
Where-
It's
where-
actually,
2.5 feet has come out?
it's
In
come
a
out.
couple areas, there's a little bit still.
Especially where it's shaded in the back.
Yeah. there's a
Where-
I mean, I dug here on lot 7, over here, and put a propane tank into it, and there was no frost. And that was on the shadier side of the house.
When I was out there was a standing pipe that had water coming out like a water fountain.
It was around the cul-de-sac. I was
Where
about
was
to
that
mention
water
that.
coming from?
It
Because it
comes
was
from-
carrying silt too.
So, if you were probably over here by
There was a
lot
green,
16.
there was a green box right next to it.
So it's a
It was all
transformer. So
like-
then there's a pipe right here that goes from here to here, and it's a Verizon pipe, and it was right at grade. So the water was going in here and coming out right here.
And that water was going right down into the wetland.
Yeah.
Right down. You would never expect that to happen, but that's one of the things.
It was going right down into.
Yeah, but
Basin
right
Four.
down,
Electrical
draining
lines.
right down between the two of them. Wait, no, it was following that route that Sarah was talking about.
Right here,
down.
right. And behind that, there
Oh,
also
yeah,
is,
this pipe, see, that's where it was coming up.
that's where that temporary basin
And
is,
then
right
going
there,
right around and
between
then.
ponds.
So has it been stopped?
But that's the kind of thing that you like, you
Yes, I
see that.
regraded, but it was, right. So that's
that-
regraded right now, and there's no water there anyway. Now it comes around,
Because the pipe was right here.
Yes.
Yeah, right here. It's
Yep.
It was
It's a-
pouring out.
Utility.
yep,
Pouring
it's just a
out.
pipe.
The
a pipe.
Utility conduit?
Yeah, but it was silty. It was carrying silt and it was pouring out and it was going right down.
Yeah,
It was
right-
it was
right around
contributing.
that
It was
pile.
contributing to silt going in the wetland.
Pile.
It was contributing to
Going
it.
into Basin 4.
It never hit the basin.
Yeah, it was going
It
around.
was going around it.
Around it.
Never hit it.
All right. Yep. We recognize that, and we will take a very close look at that area with Patriot tomorrow, as a high priority area of concern. So again, we'll get you a list tomorrow with priority list and also a
What time will you be on
description
next?
sketch.
Color of what was coming out.
What time will you be on next?
It wasn't clear, it was.
No, yeah, it looks cloudy.
I don't have the agenda set.
Today, everything looks so clear. I swear to God, I have like rose-colored
take your
glasses. I
time?
always see this stuff when it looks good.
Let Jennifer know. I got
Give it back to Amy.
I am,
All right,
look at it.
just call us up and send an email.
That's yours.
Here's my
Did you want any water quality
hydrogeology
sampling
professor.
Sure.
or TSS
Yeah.
monitoring or
I would think in
something
the
like
stream, in that stream.
So,
Well, we can set that out in the email in terms of what the requirements would be for him tomorrow.
is there anything we need to do in the immediate future? I mean.
Water
before we-
sampling, it'll be water sampling, like within the next day or two. And you have to, you have to record where the sampling, like, put a flag on the tree, like right next to where you were, because you'll,
I'll walk them through and understand what.
Yeah, you might want like an upstream, downstream.
Yeah, but just-
And I don't know if you just want to do.
Yep, I know.
Not a set sheet ditch, but something.
I've done stream monitoring for.
Yeah,
for
I have
several
been, but it's not like.
So-
but every time they turn a pump
Right.
on,
Thank you.
they have to record it.
Okay.
I'll put it in a Ziploc too, so like during the day they can.
Right. And it should be in the trailer.
What is the best map to, I'm trying to understand how all these little streams and tributaries work, like where they go. Is there a good map? I've been looking online and I,
Yeah, they're hard to
Just like-
find.
yeah, it's hard to
Topo
find
should
something
have
that shows
something.
a good,
Water
way the
depart- the water
streams
department
work.
has
I just
one.
don't understand where they go.
Our water department,
I'll show you.
our water department,
You can figure it out.
USGS and Oliver and
Yeah,
the
the topos.
DEP wetland maps and hydrological connection maps will
Okay.
show you.
the Littleton Water Department has a really good mapping
I
system
don't know
too.
if Oliver has it. It's a small stream.
For these streams, it'll work.
Thank you, sorry.
Good night.
But some of that's changed with history
Yeah,
too,
Oliver's not 100%. I use it at work a lot, and
because
It's not.
a lot of it came from across the road from Herpes into that pond, into that. That's kind of,
We need to start charging them for overtime.
Okay. So we know you've
Alright.
waited a long time, and as I mentioned earlier, so Cloverdale won't be discussed, but I understand there's something that you want to share.
Rody out in 5 Hilltown Road. I'm here tonight 'cause
Do you want, can you come up and speak to the microphone, please?
Rudy Adam of 5 Old Farm Road, and I'm here tonight just because the last meeting, after subsequent to the hearing being closed, there was further discussion on Cloverdale. And additionally, during the open section during the hearing, it was stated that there would be discussion held with the Board of Selectmen prior to any further discussion. So I wanted to ask, when is the discussion going to be on the Board of Selectmen's agenda?
After they get done with the town meeting warrants,
We've asked to,
we've been pushed off.
yep, we can't get on.
Okay. So you've asked them?
We've asked, but we.
You
they're-
see the parking
they're-
lot out there? Most of that clientele belongs to those cars that are down there with the
Right,
selectmen.
Okay.
so we've asked, but we can't, they're not hearing us.
Okay, so what was stated at the open meeting last time as far as the hearing was that discussion with the Board of Selectmen would take place prior to any further discussion.
And you
on
had
Cloverdale.
your selectman chair here, who also spoke on record that he was going to meet with Mass Dot and was going to ask about the road and start to bring it forth for a discussion for selectmen. And then Amy was charged to do that, and so we're in
Yeah, well, I think part of the discussion he was having was as a personal resident, from what he had stated.
No, as a selectman, he was meeting with Mass DOT, was my understanding, on a different.
Either
on a
he
different-
or the highway
He spoke in
department.
both.
Right, he spoke
Okay.
on both.
He
Sorry.
spoke in both, but,
Right.
but he did speak as a selectman, in my recollection, as far as the DOT, because as a personal resident, he can't do anything
Right.
with DOT.
Right.
That's,
Yeah, so again, my question as far as further discussion on Cloverdale prior to,
We're not gonna have any until we know what the support is of the selectmen. So that's why it'll continue to be, it probably won't even get heard on the 5th because the select, we haven't
It'll
been in
be
front
on
of
the
the selectmen.
agenda as a continued to March
So it'll just
Yeah,
keep
next week.
19th.
continuing.
right, because selectmen are meeting tonight, and they're not talking about it, so.
My guess is we're not gonna, it's not a high priority item with them right now.
right,
So what I would have to say, it probably won't deal with it until after the town meeting. Would be my guess, and that's just a guess. They have other things that are much higher priority than worrying about this little minuscule project.
What's the date of that? Is
But
it
we've
May?
I mean, we have requested, I know
Should be
Amy's
before that.
requested, I've personally spoken to
Oh,
May 4th?
other selectmen.
and if we can get our address corrected in the minutes?
Thank you. Anna, do you wanna, do we have anything else?
Yeah, just back on finishing up the Hartwell Avenue CRs, 65 Hartwell and Pittarino. He wasn't able to come in because he was on vacation to talk
I
about
think
that
to just,
stuff.
yeah, I think to send to the two that weren't here, to send a note, say, please contact,
They both know that. They both know they're on for the 5th. But I don't know if you wanted to discuss and enforce an order for Pittarino's.
certainly.
Wait until he comes in.
Certainly warrants it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of breaching through there.
I mean, I think you should go on record and saying, come in and you have to start to clean it up.
Is there an erosion problem
Oh,
now?
big time.
Then
Yes.
maybe we should issue the enforcement order tonight.
Okay. I mean, you're
all
all,
here.
you're all here.
Mhm.
We've seen, many of us have seen
Yeah,
it. It's,
I saw it too.
I almost lost my boot.
You need somebody want to make a motion?
And I had tall boots on.
Would somebody make a motion to issue an enforcement order? Or we all mum?
I've done the last many, so.
Hmm?
It would be an enforcement order for 65 Hartwell Avenue.
Issue an enforcement order for 65 Hartwell Avenue.
I'll second it.
Pittarino?
Yeah, I think I just-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, Amy? After we
Now I
sign?
can get you all to sign it later.
Perfect.
Let's not forget that.
Just put my pen away.
If there's no do you have any
Gonna-
further business? Amy, is there any further?
No, I'm good. I think.
Well, Rachel, why were you at the selectmen? Was there something?
Historical commission.
Oh, historical commission.
Was it historical?
I'm sorry. They want to extend the demolition bylaw from 6 months to 18 months, so.
Wow.
Lively discussion about that.
Oh, yeah, 6 months is really short.
Okay.
Looks like we're
Cool,
close.
so I would like to formally adjourn the hearing at 10:32.
37.
No, it's 5 minutes past.
Oh, oh.
Second.
All those in favor?
I.
Aye.